Huh? Hello? Hello. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome in. It's me, your Baboi. KonkyTalks. Konky, Steve. Today, we are embarking on a new streaming adventure. I am going to embark on learning a program called Blender. It is a 3D program that is free, and I'm gonna learn how to make shit, guys. I'm gonna learn how to make stuff in 3D. I went to school at a very not very good art school, and left that school with a animation degree, and never used it. I started working IT in retail almost immediately. Never found a passion for doing the thing that I needed to do while I was at the school. So we're gonna start from square one. I'm gonna learn this shit from square one, and that's how we're gonna do it. We out here blendering. Hi, Tuesday. How you doing? Speaking of blenderers, he's a blenderer, guys. Tuesday, what a hunk. Be a hunk. Follow Tuesday. Okay. Hope you're doing well, Tuesday. Always good to see you. All right. Go on the old YouTube here. Bam, 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 bam. And get my playlist for learning how to do Blender. Playlist. And where are we at? All right. The donut. Okay. Let's get Blender opened up. Ooh, Blender's 30th anniversary. January 2nd, Blender turns 30. That's cool. Wow, 30 years. That's kind of nuts. Okay, Blender is launched. Of course. Of course. Why would this work? Here we go. There we go. Okay. And I feel like I should add this here too. So I'm going to add a display capture. Wait, what? Maybe it's not display capture. Window capture. Okay. You know, maybe you don't need to see this. I'm gonna get rid of that. We're not gonna do that. Okay. So much stuff on my desktop. All right.
To do things, maybe trying to see how far you can go. If you've just opened Blender for the first time and then you've tried to do things, maybe trying to see how far you can go without getting help, you might have discovered you need help immediately. You can't even move things without a tutorial. But the good news is you don't need to learn everything that you can see, right?
True.
I, for example, have been using Blender for 18 years, and I still have not touched some parts of Blender, like scripting. Never touched it because I don't need to for what it is that I'm trying to do.
Cool.
This fly is going to kill me. If you're familiar with the 80-20 rule, I think there's really about 20% of Blender's features that you'll use in 80 or 90% of projects. And that's what I want to teach you in this tutorial series. And then since I think doing is the best way to learn, along the way we'll also be building our very own donut, of course. The donut, what I'm known for. This is the third time I'm making a donut tutorial series. Every time Blender releases a new version, I make this series. So if you finish this full series, you will end up with a donut that looks very similar to this. So let's get started. This big window that you can see right here opened up, this is called the 3D viewport, and it's where you'll spend probably 90% of your time, because everything you need to visualize, whether it's an animation or an arc-viz or anything like that, it all happens right here. So by default, you can see you get three objects. You've got a cube, you've got what looks like a ball on a piece of string, that's a lamp, and then you've got a camera, this little, what would you call that? Like a triangle arrow looking thing. That's a camera, okay? And then if you were to render this by going to render image, or hitting the hotkey F12, it would take a snapshot from that camera view, okay?
Neat.
And although this looks very similar to what you were just looking at, this one actually has lighting information, okay? You got shadow, you got some light coming off the top here. And if you had textures or materials and everything else, it would all be calculated, okay? So if you've already used other 3D software, you're already familiar with the concept, but this is one of the basic principles of 3D rendering. What you build in the 3D viewport is sort of like a simplified version of what it is you're trying to create. And then when you're ready for that final image, you hit render, and then it uses your CPU or your GPU to crunch all the numbers and calculate the light and the bounces and everything like that to create that final beautiful image. So that's the basics. All right, but you might notice, like, okay, well, all right, can we move this thing? How do we even do something basic like move it? There's two ways you could do it. One would be to use the move tool in your toolbar. If you activate that, you can see that over the cube now you get these arrows. And if you were to click and drag on any of those arrows, you would move it along that axis. If you clicked on the white circle in the middle, then that would just be sort of like free dragging it, okay? Now, you could do it that way, but actually, I never do it that way because it is far easier to just learn the hotkey.
Okay.
Which in this case is G. G for grab. Okay, so if you just hit G, your cursor doesn't have to be anywhere near it, and I'm not clicking. My hands are off the clicker. It's just attached to your cursor basically the moment you hit G. And if you just do a single left click, it will confirm its movement. So G, click. Okay. And my cursor could be anywhere, right? And I can do it, which is actually good because you don't have to like think about where is my cursor. Do I have to like get it on here and then hit it? No, it's really, it just allows
these are the
you to
layers.
work,
I get it.
Really fast. Excuse me while I get a drink of water. I know I'm only 2 minutes into the video. 4 minutes. All right. Anyways. Now, one thing you're missing with this is those axes lines, like being able to move it along a specific axis is actually a really common action. You want to use it all the time. And you can do that after you have hit G by typing the letter of the axes. So there are three axes, and the axes letters are X,
X.
Okay, which is the left and right.
Oh.
Y, which is back and forwards, and then Z, which is up and down. Some 3D softwares call the Y-axis the
That's
up and down,
cool.
but Blender's it's the Z, the blue one.
Okay.
Alternatively, you can also, as you're moving it, if you hold down on your mouse, on your scroll wheel, if you push in, that's called the middle mouse button, push in until it clicks, and just hold that. And you can see you get this little line that draws out, and then you can just drag it to the nearest line, nearest axis, and it will automatically snap to that.
Cool.
Which is really handy. Pretty cool.
Wow.
Not too bad. Okay, so that's moving things. Now, the other two actions that are really common is rotate and scale. And you can
Rotate and scale.
You could use the tool just by clicking here, and then you can, rotate it on a specific axis. You could click in the middle and like do a trackball thing. Scale, exact same thing. Scale it like that.
That's cool.
But again, I recommend learning the hotkeys, which you can learn just by hovering over it.
Okay.
And the hotkey for this one. So where it says shortcut, shift spacebar, it's technically true. You could activate it from this little menu here if you hit shift spacebar. But it's the one after that, R. Really easy to remember. R for rotate. Okay, so rotate. And then you can hit the letter of the axis as well, or do that same holding the middle mouse button. Oh,
that's
weird.
cool.
Maybe because I did it after tapping that. Anyways.
Okay.
And then you've got scale, which is hovering over it, S for scale. Okay, S, X, Y, and Z, like that. And if you want to cancel a movement, you can hit escape, or you can just right-click as well, and that'll also cancel the movement. But yeah, so you can see you could do quite a lot just with those few little movements there.
Oh,
okay?
that's fucking cool.
That's how you move stuff about. Now, let's talk about the next thing you probably want to learn is like, how do I actually move my view? Like, how could I look and explore the rest of the scene? And that is also done with your middle mouse button. Okay,
I already
so
figured
if you
that
click
out.
in on your scroll wheel until it clicks.
Because 3DS Max is similar.
That is how you orbit. And my laptop people with trackpads, you are panicking right now because you've just realized you don't have a middle mouse button. You can do it in a pinch by going to the top right-hand corner. There's a little gizmo. And if you just click and drag on that, you can see that you are able to free rotate around. Alternatively, you can also go Edit Preferences, and then underneath Input, if you click Emulate 3-button mouse, this will enable you to, holding down Alt, if you then hold down left-click, it just does the same thing.
For mouse pad.
The mouse button.
Okay.
Which is pretty cool. It's not bad. Whilst you're here, by the way, you might also, depending on the size of your screen, you might want to change the resolution, because by default it's 1, which on my 4K monitor, you can see that my buttons and the text is really small. And if you crank it all the way up, you can get it to something comfortable.
Hold on. Interface. Where's that at? File? Preferences? There it is. Oh, nice. Oh, that's fantastic. Some accessibility settings. I like that. Cool. Okay.
The point 4 or 5 is what I would normally go for. And by the way, I'm snapping it. Like as you're dragging something, if you hold down Control, it's using incremental numbers, so it keeps it to like a whole number. I'd normally go like 1.4 if I was using it myself, but it's a tutorial, so I'll keep it big so you guys can see what I'm getting at. Cool. Okay. And another thing, just while I'm here, just mentioning, some of you are from other 3D software, 3ds Max, Maya, that kind of thing.
3ds Max.
You might find it helpful to know there's an industry-compatible key map that you could enable. Which I'll put them up on the screen here, but it's more common keyboard shortcuts if you're used to other software. But for this tutorial series and everyone else, I recommend
just
sticking
learn
to the Blender one, because
Start
of course, all the hotkeys and everything you'll learn whilst learning Blender will be for this hotkey thing.
Okay.
Anyways. All right. Okay. So that's orbiting. Okay.
Okay.
Now you can see as I orbit around, it's like locked on to my middle of my screen here. Okay.
Yes.
If I want to move somewhere else, that is pan, which is shift middle mouse button.
Shift.
Okay, now I'm shifting my view.
Okay,
to
now I'm
somewhere else
panning.
where I could pan around
Panning.
that place and shift
panning.
again. And
Panning
if
around.
you're on a trackpad, you could also use this, move the view, this little hand icon thing at the top there. Do invest in a mouse, please. You will need it for 3D. You really should get a mouse. It's going to be tough. The other thing that I'm doing right now is I'm using the scroller to zoom in and out. You can also use this little magnifying glass up there.
Yep.
Or hold down control, and then again click in on the middle mouse, and that will use a smooth movement rather than the scroll wheel, which is
okay.
quite,
I don't need that.
Jaggedy.
Okay,
cool. So let's say
Is this a light?
you've moved the cube all the way over there. Like, okay, so you could, if you wanted to go and inspect your cube, you could, work your way over there by using shift middle mouse button to pan over there. But it is far easier to just learn the hotkey number pad period, which will focus on any selected
number
object.
pad period.
So if I want to go to my camera over there, I can select my camera, and number pad period will take me over to there.
Oh,
Again,
okay.
my laptop users are going, oh no, I don't have a number pad. All right. The alternative way to do it is hold down the tilde key, which is that weird key underneath your escape key you've probably never used before. That brings up a pie menu with a bunch of view options, and view selected is focus. View selected will take you there.
Nice. Okay.
Okay, cool.
I can do that from here,
we've
too, then.
learned orbiting with middle mouse.
Orbiting.
Shift middle mouse to pan.
Orbiting.
And then control middle mouse to zoom in and out or scroll. The other one you probably want to learn
Shift middle mouse to pan.
Align your view to axes, because it's something that you new beginners often end up like upside down, and they're like,
Yeah.
how did this happen?
Yep. I've had that happen.
So you can go to bring yourself the right way up just by clicking one of these letters on your axes up here.
Okay.
So if you clicked that, I'm now the right way. Well, am I the right way up? Yes, I'm the right way up.
Okay.
I'm just focused on a weird part of the scene. That's why it's very weird. Alternatively, instead of these, so there's the 3 axes that you could snap yourself to. You could also learn the hotkeys, which is number pad 1 for front view, 1 for front view, 3 for 4, side view,
5,
and
6,
7 for top view. That's only number pad. It doesn't work for your keys along the top unless you wanted to enable that over here, emulate number pad, and then it would do that. But yeah, so that's handy as well. You might also find you'll notice, that in this view, this is orthographic mode. Okay, so we can't see the other sides of our cube right now. It's a weird looking cube, but we can't see the other sides because this is orthographic mode. It's like looking at it with like a focal length of like infinity, right? So there's no depth in our scene right now,
Right.
Which is actually really handy, and it defaults to it for this align to view thing. Immediately, because you usually want that, but the hotkey for that is number pad 5. And that will take you in and out of perspective mode. You can also do it up there.
Oh.
Like that. You can see the difference.
Okay.
Oh, and another way that you could see align to view, because there's a couple of ways. You could also use that tilde key. That'll take you to the top, the right, the side, etc. You could also use the viewport. You could change those. It's also got the hotkeys there if you happen to forget them.
Okay.
And the other way is the same as ZBrush, if you're familiar with ZBrush.
Nope.
I just cleared the location of that with Alt-G. You don't need to remember that one. That's a weird one.
Okay.
Similar to ZBrush, holding down Alt whilst middle mouse button orbiting will also snap it to the nearest axes, which is also really handy as well. So if I'm like moving around and I'm like, I want to look up, just hold down Alt and it'll just snap it there, which is really handy. So that's kind of the 3D viewport. We'll obviously get way more into this as we delve into the other lessons. But whilst we're here, these other sections over here.
Speed it up.
So on the right-hand side, this is your properties.
Properties.
And as you can imagine, it's the properties of things in the 3D viewport or the scene. You could change render settings or things here. And look, there's a lot here. Like I would strongly recommend not trying to learn all the values because you're not going to remember them anyway. We'll go through them as they're needed in this tutorial series. I think the best way to learn is to just do for something that you need to do.
Yes.
So that's what I try to teach. These options, some of these options will change depending on what is selected. So like if my camera is selected, you can see I get a camera icon and then I could change some camera settings. If my cube is selected, I get some material settings.
So it's
right?
context sensitive.
I could change the color to red and I could see a beautiful gray red color. It's a weird looking red. The reason it's not changing over here in the 3D viewport is because, again, this is a simplified view of the final render.
It's
There's
not
no
rendered.
material properties in this view. We'll get to viewport rendering later on, but for now, you would see it, though, if you were in render.
If you render it.
F12 to do an actual render.
F12.
Now, at the top here,
Okay.
we have got a outliner. So this is keeping a running inventory of everything that you've got in your 3D viewport
Woody.
at the moment. So we've got 3 objects and we've got 1 collection. So a collection is just, it's like a folder, basically.
Okay.
Simple way to think of it. So you can like organize things. You can rename things just by double clicking on it.
Material.
Yeah, whatever, right? And so that'll automatically update as you add things to the scene. Like if I was to duplicate my object, which I could do by hitting Shift D to duplicate,
Shift
you can see there's
D?
created another object right up there in the outliner. So if I ever like lose something and I'm like, oh, where's that thing? I can just find it on here and then just, bam, whoops, bam. Oh, by the way, I just accidentally tapped number pad 0, which is how you can look through the camera view. You could also do it by hitting the little camera icon on the right there.
Cool.
Or by going viewport, camera, or by hitting the tilde key. So there are 4 places to get viewport options depending on what device or whatever it is that you're looking at. I deleted something by hitting X. You could also do it by hitting delete. By the way, I'm throwing a lot of keys at you, keyboard shortcuts. It's a lot to take in, especially when you're starting. So I created a keyboard shortcut PDF, and the link for that is in the description. It's just a list. It's like 3 or 4 pages of the most common hotkeys that you'll need to learn, or you might need to reference as you're using Blender. So you can basically load it up on another monitor whilst you're working, and you've got it there as reference if you need it.
Okay.
I used to make it like a bonus for signing up for my newsletter, but now I'll just make it free. So you don't have to subscribe. You can just click that link, view it, and hopefully that'll make it easier to use Blender. You can still subscribe to my newsletter. It's a weekly newsletter on tutorials, artworks, and things that I find in the 3D industry. So if you want to keep up
Andrew.
to date and learn new things, you can subscribe to that.
Doing well, Andy. Woody. We're doing
that's it for this one because we have
we're learning
quite a lot of
Blender.
ground, so we'll keep it simple and open up a brand new
3D
scene
program.
in Blender, and then join me in part 2, which is where we'll actually start making.
Part 2.
This tutorial series was brought to you by my company Polygon. High quality models and textures for better renders.
Oh, cool.
All right, enough faffing around, as my late grandfather
No
would
more
say.
faffing.
We have learned the basics of the interface, all the hotkeys. We've fooled around. Now we're going to start building that donut. Okay, so we are going to delete our default Q, which is just the delete key, or X, which is the older shortcut, and we're going to replace it with something new. So to add a new object in Blender,
add
you
Q,
go up to add, up here, and you get this long list, or you can hit the hotkey, which is what I'm going to be using for the tutorial,
add.
Shift A. And truthfully, most of these options, a lot of the options you rarely use. Like speaker, I don't think I've ever used. Most of the time what you're looking for is mesh, because to render anything, you really need to start with a mesh.
Mesh?
If you followed like a character tutorial, you might be surprised.
Donut.
Like, all right, start with a cube, and then, we'll bip-bip-boo, and we'll form the character
what is this,
eventually from that, right?
What the fuck?
We have to start with something. So usually you pick the object which most resembles what it is you're trying to create.
A
in
donut.
this case, there's a really easy one. It's the donut-shaped one.
Yes.
The torus. Torus. That is a word I never would have learned, except for Blender.
A torus.
I would have called that a donut, but evidently the mathematicians decided they need a special word for it. Okay, when you add an object and do certain actions actually in Blender, you get options straight after adding it, okay? But they're kind of hidden because they're trying to stay out of the way unless you need them. And it's down there in the bottom left-hand corner. There's a little box, which if you click it, it expands. And then you get options like the resolution and the size of it and everything. Now, if you don't see that box, it's probably because you accidentally clicked off it, okay?
That's true.
It'll only show it after you've just added it. If you click off it, it assumes you're fine with it. You're good, okay? Now, if you haven't done another action since then, if you haven't edited it and clicked on something else or whatever, you can temporarily bring it back for one last time, really, until you do something else, with F9. Okay, so F9 will bring those same options back just at your cursor, basically.
Okay.
But if you don't see it, then, just re-add it, delete it, and re-add it, and you'll get those options back again.
Okay.
Okay, so with this, let's make some changes to it. Okay, so for starters, this is a very thin donut.
Yes.
And you want to know this maybe, but this is the 3rd time I've made this donut beginner series. Every time there's a new version of Blender, I make this series again. This is number 3. And basically, for the last 5 years of my life, I have been seeing every day on Twitter when somebody tags me in their donut render. And I've become very good at realizing the attributes that make donuts look good. And I think the best donuts are the ones that look thick. The ones that look like, oh yeah, I want to sink my teeth into that because it's got a lot of icing, it's got a lot of dough. I don't know, just something about a fat donut. Just like, yeah, that looks delicious. So I'm going thick this time. Okay.
Okay.
And then the major segments and the minor segments, these are, as you can probably see, we'll call it the resolution of our donut, but it is it's the amount of geometry. Okay, so this, you are probably tempted to go like really high, because this is what I did when I first started using Blender in 3D. I'm like, I'm trying to make something high quality and realistic, so it's got to be smooth. Okay, so I'm going to go really high res. It's actually the opposite. You do not want that. I immediately realized when I started using this is a terrible idea. For one, you can't go back. Okay. When you go high, you can. If you go low, you can add other things, which is what we're going to do to make it smoother, but it's harder to go back. And also with this, it takes longer to render. It's harder to work with because it's a bigger file. Your viewport slows down. Your computer's whirring away harder. And also it is harder to work with. Okay. When we enter edit mode, and we're going to do this later and like do some edits and stuff here, I have to work with this many vertices.
That's a lot of vertices.
That is just too much. So you actually want the exact opposite. So, we want to keep it as minimum. Okay, so the minimum amount of detail depends on what it is you're trying to create. We could go like really low, but we're actually going to use part of this donut for the icing. So I'm trying to think, okay, what am I going to do with the icing? Am I going to make some like dribbly bits going down it? I don't know. Having done this a few times, I think I'm going to go with around like somewhere around 40 to 20. Something like that. Let's go 16. 16 looks good. Okay. By the way, and you would never know this because how could you if you're a beginner? But like it's also a good idea to try to keep square faces, because as a general, if you're making something organic and it's going to be smooth, if it's got rectangular faces, it can like stretch the shading and things just start to look weird. So I'm trying to keep it generally to a square face. Doesn't have to be a hard rule, but something like that.
Okay.
All right. Then I'm going to click off it and I'm done. And I can't get those options back temporarily with F9, but you get the idea. Okay, cool. So, great. Let's talk about, first of all, the size of this donut, okay? Because although it looks like, what is the scale of our scene here, right? We're like looking into the distance there, like how big is this grid floor? We don't know.
We don't know. How big is this?
Microscopic. It could be, 500 meters. It could be landscape size. We don't know.
Yes.
We actually do. Okay, so each one of these grid squares here, is it 1 meter or 2? I think it's 1 meter. Hang on. Yes, it is 1 meter. Okay, so this, actually, the size of our donut is humongous. It is 3 meters by 3 meters. Okay, so if you, I didn't tell you the hotkey. N will bring up your properties. Very handy, convenient shortcut. You just bring it up when you want to learn. Click on your object, and then go to item, and then you can see, details around your object. Okay, so it's 3 meters by 3 meters, which is like roughly like 2 people laying down lengthways. By the way, speaking of that, if you are American, for my American audience, you can change your units to be Wacky Imperial, and you can get 9.9 periwinkles or whatever it is. I don't know. You can do that. I'm going to use 3 meters because the rest of the world is also watching. All right. So this obviously needs to be much smaller. So we're going to scale it. Scaling the hotkey S. Scale it right down to the size of a donut, which I've learned is around about like the biggest size would be around about like 10 centimeters, right? Yeah, roughly. So yeah, 10 centimeters is what we're looking for. Like that. We could have done it when we added the torus, but that was radius, and radius is like you got to double it to make it. And I'm like, just scale it down after we make it, and it'd be much easier to figure out. Okay. Now, the other thing I want to do is apply the scale, because, and this is another thing you would never know if you're a beginner, but it's sort of a running joke in the 3D world.
Can I do this as
anytime you run into a problem with your mesh, something's not working, apply the scale, because if your scale is wrong, other things tend to perform wrong, like modifiers and other things like that. So this scale here should pretty much always be 1 if you can, yeah. Try and make it always 1, roughly speaking. So to apply your scale, you go Control A and then hit scale. Okay, so Control A for apply and then scale. And now it is 1. Nothing has changed, but it just means things will work better in the future. And I'm just doing it because I know I'll forget it, and then it'll be like in the comments. And
wait, what is that?
Why is mine messed up? Okay, so Control A for try and make it always 1, roughly speaking. So something's not working, but it's sort of a running joke.
I need to hear the explanation for that again.
Now, the other thing I want to do is apply the scale, because, and this is another thing you would never know if you're a beginner, but it's sort of a running joke in the 3D world, but like anytime you run into a problem with your mesh, something's not working, apply the scale, because if your scale is wrong, other things tend to perform wrong, like modifiers and other things like that. So this scale here should pretty much always be 1 if you can, yeah, try and make it always 1, roughly speaking.
Okay.
So to apply your scale,
this is what he's talking about right here.
A and then hit scale. Okay, so Control A for apply and then scale. And now it is 1. Nothing has changed, but it just means things will work better in the future.
Okay, so when I set the scale to 1, does that just mean that I'm operating at this scale? Like the scale of the donut is what I'm saved at, if I'm understanding that correct? I think that's accurate.
I'm just doing it because I know I'll forget it, and then they'll be like in the comments, and people go, why is mine messed up? And it was because of this part I didn't say hit. Anyway, all right. Okay, so how do we get rid of these jagged lines? Because that's probably your next question. How do we get rid of those jagged lines? There are two types of shading in Blender, or in 3D. flat and smooth. So by default, it is flat. To change it to smooth, we just right click and then hit shade smooth, okay? And when we do that, it is basically like for these faces here, it has taken, instead of treating each face separately, if they're an adjacent face, it's going to like stretch the light across. It's going to treat it as if it is one continuous face rather than two faces.
Okay.
So for organic objects, which means length, things that are flowing essentially, or rounded things maybe, you generally want smooth things. And then for like architecture or hard surface things, you want flat things. So shade smooth. So we've got rid of that. That's good. Now you'll notice that it has not fixed the silhouette of our object. Okay, so shade smooth is a illusion. Okay, it's not actually adding any geometry, which is great because it's lightweight, it's easy to work with. It's not adding geometry, but your silhouette will still be broken, or will still look jagged. The only way to fix that is to add more detail. It's something that games, that's kind of the thing. If you want to look at a game and go like, I wonder how poly this thing is. Like, look at the silhouette of a character or the shape of a building or something like that. And if you see jagged lines, you can basically see the mesh, like how high poly something is.
Okay.
The silhouette. So we can fix that with something called a subsurf operation, okay, or subdivision. And there are a few ways to do it, but the way we do it in Blender is with adding a modifier. Okay, so we click this little wrench.
Add a modifier.
Is it a spanner? Is that a spanner? It's been a while since I got my hands dirty. Anyways, it's the modifier panel over here. And then go up and underneath add modifier. If you click it, you get a whole bunch of different options here. And the one that we're looking for is, I mean, you use it so often. I wish it was at the top, but it's not. It's down here, subdivision surface. So you click that, and you might see that it has now smoothed out ever so slightly. You can see that edge there. The jagged edge is no longer there. Or it is there, but it is less. So what is subsurf? It's called a subsurf, even though it's called subdivision. Subsurf modifier, what it is doing is and I'm going to temporarily turn this off by that little icon there. That's viewport. So if you uncheck that, it's disabling.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Render if you want to disable it for your render. Okay, so what it is doing is you can see the edge there, right? If there are 3 points that make up that edge there, subsurf is now adding in, it's doubling the amount of detail across the entire mesh, not just the silhouette, the entire mesh. Every single point, it is now adding another one. Now, if you do 2 levels, so levels viewport and render, you'll probably guess, that's just one operation, okay? If I set this to 2, which is what you would see, set it to 2, which is what you see when you would render it, it's doing it again, okay? So it's, I guess the word's exponentially. It's exponentially adding detail every time you add this. So it's going to do it again and again and again.
I see.
Okay. So obviously you don't want to go too high because otherwise your render times would be crazy. And yeah, you just want to keep it as low as possible. So often I keep it 1 or 0 whilst I'm working in the viewport. And then for the render, I keep it at like 1 or 2 or something.
Okay.
Anyways. All right. Okay. So we're spending a little long on this, but I need to just give you some background on how to make things look smooth without really going high res. Okay. So as I teased before, this mesh is made up of little points, and we can edit those points and adjust things and whatnot by going into edit mode, which you can do by hitting tab on your keyboard. Okay. Another way is to go up to the top left-hand corner. Change from
there's the
object
mesh
mode to edit mode. Okay. So tab is just a fast way to switch between those 2 modes.
Gotcha.
Another way, third way, because why not? Control tab will bring up the pie menu, and then you can enter into, along with just object and edit mode, but like texture paint and sculpt mode, and we'll do a bunch of stuff later on, but edit mode. Okay. So in edit mode, we can see that we're now able to see the skeleton, roughly, that makes up our mesh. Okay.
Yes.
Each of these little points here is what makes up our mesh. So these points are called vertices. Sorry, a single one is called a vertex. Multiples are called vertices. Always get them confused because it's got an S on it as well. It's like vertices, vertexes. It's not vertexes, it's vertices. Anyways, these little points make up our mesh. And on each of these points, if you've got 3 or more, usually 4 is the ideal one you're usually aiming for when you're making meshes, you can make a face. Okay, so if I just delete, I'll just hit X and I'll show you what it looks like without a face. Okay, so between each of these points there, I'll add another one with F, there is a face. Okay, so all the points together make up a face, and then that makes up your mesh. So what this means is that with these points, if I want to change the look of my mesh, I can take some of these points and I can move them, okay? And you use the exact same hotkeys as you did before. So to move something, it is G for grab. Okay, so if I move this up and then go back out of edit mode to object mode, you can see as I move around, it's now got a little lump on it.
Okay.
Okay, pretty handy. So I could do that, right? I could tweak the shape of my mesh. Okay, so let's say like I wanted to, like make my donut look kind of like lopsided, or like add some detail, because this is necessary, by the way. Your brain, when it thinks about objects, because you've seen them so many times, it simplifies it in your head. You think of a donut as being round, but it's bumpy, it's lumpy. It was thrown in the fire. The guy who like made the dough, it was all lopsided. But in your head, you just think of it as a round circle. The digital world will always give you the perfect thing. So you need to go in and add those imperfections. It's an old quote, don't know who said it. Imperfection is the digital perfection. Yeah, I don't know. It's very, very true. So think of that. So anyways, we need to add some lumps to it and make our donut lopsided. So if we held down shift, we could select multiple points and then we could drag these out. I could do this. I could, slowly go through it. Now this is tedious, as I'm sure you can see.
Yeah.
Clicking, lots and lots of clicking, little points. And that's really because that's not the way I would do this. What I would do which is a feature that you use all the time, and that is proportional editing. So if you click this little button at the top here, or the hotkey for that is O, turn that on and off. What this will do is that now when I rotate scale or hit G to grab and move it, now it's actually grabbing vertices around it and it is moving it together as a whole. Now by default, your proportional size is really high, okay? So if I scroll up, I can gradually bring the fall off down to what actually makes sense for my donut, okay? Now, this was actually a point, I was reading the comments on the last video, the last version of this I made, and this was a point that a lot of people got stuck on. If you can't see this ring here, just keep scrolling up because it is there. If you see top left-hand corner, actually, it gives you the measurement. As I scroll, you can see the measurement of my fall off. What you're looking for is something like a 0.04. If you can't see 0.04 meters, the comments on the last video. So if I scroll up, so if you click this little button at the top here, the hotkey for that is O. Turn that on and off. What this will do is that now when I rotate scale or hit G to grab and move it, now it's actually grabbing vertices around it and it is moving it together as a whole. Now by default, your proportional size is really high, okay? So if I scroll up, I can gradually bring the fall off down to what actually makes sense for my donut, okay? Now, this was actually a point, I was reading the comments on the last video, the last version of this I made, and this was a point that a lot of people got stuck on. If you can't see this ring here, just keep scrolling up because it is there. If you see top left-hand corner, actually, it gives you the measurement. As I scroll, you can see the measurement of my fall off. What you're looking for is something like a 0.04. If you can't see 0.04 meters, just keep scrolling up. Is that now when I rotate scale or hit G to grab and move it, now it's actually grabbing vertices around it and it is moving it together as a whole. Now by default, your proportional size is really high, okay? So if I scroll up, I can gradually bring the fall off down to what actually makes sense for my donut. Okay?
I gotcha.
Now this was actually a point, I was reading the comments on the last video, the last version of this I made, and this was a point that a lot of people got stuck on. If you can't see this ring here, just keep scrolling up because it is there. If you see top left-hand corner, actually, it gives you the measurement. As I scroll, you can see the measurement of my fall off. What you're looking for is something like a 0.04. If you can't see 0.04 meters, just keep scrolling up until you see it. And if you're on trackpad, because those people also got stuck, because they're like, how do I scroll while I'm doing it? All you do is on trackpad, you tap G, then do a single click, and then down here in the bottom left-hand corner, you've got those options again. And then you could adjust your proportional size to like a 0.04. And then if you move, you should see the correct proportional fall off, okay? Really, guys, invest in a mouse, please. Going trackpad, look, it's fine for Facebook, but like you're doing stuff in 3D, you gotta have a mouse. Come on, all right. Okay, so now that I do this with my fall off radius, and if I just scroll up and down, I can adjust and I can make my donut look however I want, much more easily.
Okay, looks better, right?
Make this part go out, maybe make this part have like a little lump that's sort of skew-if like that.
Try to do the bottom.
This, middle part, sort of like this. Okay, and I'll do another one here, something like that. Okay, oh, that's a little lopsided. It's a little bit repetitive of what's on that side. And this is maybe a little bit too far. Just sort of playing it by eye. But I have to keep this for the rest of the donut, for the rest of the tutorial. So I'm trying to do it well. Okay, and something else, by the way, another hotkey. You can see that if I want to move this up, if I was to move it like this, right? It's moved everything also left to right as well, okay? Because of my camera angle, okay? If I'm looking at something like this and I'm moving it, it is moving it across the donut. So it's scrunching everything going this way. That's not what I want. I want it to go directly up. So it means I have to get my camera angle like right down here to do that up. Alternatively, a better way, not to throw too many hotkeys at you, get my keyboard shortcuts if you haven't already, link in the description. But another hotkey is Alt-S, which instead of moving it just arbitrarily, this will now move it according to which direction those faces are pointing. And this is actually perfect for this exact case because we've got, points, rounded around it. And it's just, it's tedious to have to get my camera angle exactly right when really I just want to be able to select certain parts and then pull them in and out. So Alt-S allows me to do that. The shrink and fatten tool is what it is called. But other softwares, I think they call it move along normals or something like that. All right. And then maybe the base as well. I think we should make it a little bit lopsided on the base. Move that down. Something like that. Now, there is a sculpt tool, which we'll talk about when we get to the icing, that could also do this, but that is not the point of this tutorial. So I'm just doing proportional editing because, to be honest, like this proportional editing is perfect for this kind of thing.
Looks good.
Yeah.
All messed up.
Cool. So it's just entering into edit mode to do your changes, going into object mode to see how it looks, and then swapping back out with tab again. And that's really all it is. I think this is too thick on this side now. Too lopsided. I went too far with the imperfections. But that also comes into like the style of it, of what you're doing. Yeah. Something like that. Oh, by the way, another side point I just mentioned. We're talking about object and edit mode, okay? A big problem a lot of beginners have that I find is that later on, you'll be like, I'll say, all right, so select your lamp and your camera or something like that. And they'll be like, oh, I can't click on it. What's happened? It's because you are still in edit mode, okay? Edit mode means you cannot click on anything else other than the object that you are editing. You're still in this. When you switch back to object mode, you're now able to click on any object in your scene, but in edit mode, it is locked to that view. So if you can't click on things, just remember, check what mode you're in. You're probably in edit mode. Switch to object mode and you'll be fine. Okay, just to finish on something completely random, because why not? Just throw it in there just as a little Easter egg for those of you that made it to the end of the video. Here's something cool. If you go to select, there's an option there for select random, and this will just select at random vertices on your mesh, and then you've got a little ratio thing you could change down the bottom there. Then, if you used Alt-S, you would basically make a lumpy looking donut.
Whoa.
So it's kind of like a quick way. If you wanted to make a lumpy looking donut, you could do it that way. And also if you change the fall off type, okay, so this is that ring, that little circle that goes around it, right? If you changed it from the smooth one to sharp, then you would make it something else, like a spiky donut.
Oh, cool.
It actually looks better without the subsurf and like flat. It's like, no, it does not. Okay, I don't know what I was thinking with that. Anyways, all right, just something random to finish on. Okay, so play with your donut, get something that you like, and then join me in the next part as we do the icing. So click.
Cool.
To make renders like these, you need high quality assets, which is why I created Polygon. A
Polygon.
library of models, textures, and HDRs that work in
Got a
any
donut,
software.
guys.
Get started today at polygon.com.
Cool.
Welcome back to the Donut Show, where we make virtual donuts that we cannot eat. In this part, we're going to be making
What a
icing.
bummer.
So, with our wonderful donut here selected, we're going to, well, first of all, yeah, like icing. I mean, you could do it a million ways. You could like add a plane and then like model it out and try and pull it down and then sculpt it and do a bunch of different ways. The easiest way, really, whenever you're doing something, is to like try to reuse part of your mesh wherever you can. So we've already got the shape of a donut.
Okay.
We can duplicate our donut, shave off half of it, and then we've basically got icing. So that's what we're going to do. So enter into edit mode, and we want to select half of our donut. So if we went into, you can see that, like if we looked at it from this, you know, if we drew, you can see we're missing part of it, right? Because it's like, this is one of those cases, is what I'm trying to say, where you need to use straight on, okay? So, or number pad 1, number pad 3, whatever you want to do, something like that. Okay, and by the way, when you use this, it also switches you to orthographic mode, okay? So perspective mode is where you've got the, like the depth fall off, okay? And then orthographic mode is when it is like, as if it was like on a focal length of like infinity, so you're seeing like the actual, what's the best way to describe it? No perspective, essentially, zero perspective. And you can toggle between that, by the way, also with a number pad 5 or by clicking this little gizmo on the right-hand side there at any point. It doesn't have to be in a certain view. Okay, cool. So if we were to just drag over this right now, it looks like we've got half of our donut. However, if you moved around, you would see we're missing the other half of it.
Yes.
Okay? And that's because it's hard, okay? The mesh is hard. And therefore, to select on the other side, we have to be able to see through it. And we can do that by going up here and toggling X-ray. Or the hotkey for that is Alt-Z. And that will now show us right through it. And now when we drag over it, you can see that we've got exactly the top half of our donut all the way around. Okay, perfect. So we want to duplicate this and then separate it. Okay, so I'm going to hit Shift-D, which is how you duplicate. Or you can go up to Mesh and then click on Duplicate, wherever that would be. Right there.
Oops.
Duplicate at the top. Yeah, but Shift-D. Okay, now when you do that,
Hold on. Because I made my donut mesh a little bit more complicated, I'm missing some of these vertices. So here. It looks like this would probably be the best. No, I'm still missing some. Oops. Oh shit, did I get my mesh messed up? No, I didn't. I just had... So how do I deselect? Okay, shift, click. Oops. Okay. That should be good. Oh, this one. Yeah, you got to be really careful. I guess if you like make the mesh too complex, right? You wouldn't be able to select everything easily. Maybe I don't need the. That's more than half, right? So like I would have to do this. Okay, that works. All right.
You can see that it is now locked onto my cursor, okay? And it's right there. Duplicate at the top. Yeah, but Shift D. Okay, now when you do that,
Shift D.
you can see that it is now locked onto my cursor, okay? And it's telling me, where do you want to place this duplicate? And I don't. I want to leave it exactly where it was. So if I hit escape or right click, it's going to cancel the movement and put exactly where it was, but it has now duplicated it.
Okay.
Now what we want to do is move this to its own object, because you can see that we've now got vertices on top of vertices, and they need to be their own separate objects. So to do that, the hotkey is P. P for part of the mesh. Go to another, I don't know. It's P. For whatever reason, it's always been P.
Okay.
And we're looking for selection. So separate by the selected part of the mesh. Okay. And now in object mode, if we switch out of X-ray mode, you can see that we now have two objects, and actually we can see them up here in the outliner as well. Okay. And now just very quickly, because I know that some of you will have just messed up accidentally, and you are now screaming at the screen, oh no, how am I going to fix this? When you did this step, you duplicated it, you right click to cancel it, and then you accidentally did a single click. If you clicked something else, you've now got mesh on top of a mesh, and you don't know which vertex is which, like which is the one that was the one that you just made, right? Or which one is the actual donut. So if you ever run into this problem, what you can do is to select only things that are connected, because these are no longer connected, right? There's bits that are not connected. It's Control L, or just mouse over and then just hit a single L. L for loose parts. Is it? I don't know what it is. Link. Oh, it's linked. Okay, select linked.
Okay.
Then when you do that, you can actually, find the right part of your mesh. Okay, so now I've actually just got just my donut and then just my icing. Fantastic. Okay, so up here in the outliner, you can see two objects, and it's probably a good time to name it. Okay, so you can name it by just double clicking in the outliner.
Yeah.
You can call it icing. Another way to name it is if you've just got your object selected anywhere in your 3D viewport. It's the same hotkey as Windows renaming files. It's F2. F2. And I can now type
F2.
in donut.
Okay.
And there we go. So two things, and we could organize it however we want.
Okay.
Cool. So our icing is currently looking like a skin tight something.
Okay.
It's going to have some textures to it, okay? And we can do that with the modifiers.
Modifier.
Okay, so going over here to your modifier stack again, we are looking for something called the solidify modifier right here. There really needs to be a search function for the modifier stack, but there's just a lot here at the moment. So solidify. Okay. Now when we do this, you might not have actually really seen much change. If you went into wireframe mode, which you could do by hitting Z and then dragging to the left to go wireframe, or up here, so this is solid view mode, this is wireframe mode, okay? In wireframe mode, we're able to see just the raw mesh without any faces. You can see that it looks like a donut within a donut, but it's got thickness to it, but it is pointing it in the wrong direction. So this offset setting here from -1, we want to change that to 1. And now go back to solid view. Okay, so that is like a doona of icing. It's a lot. So we're going to turn our thickness down to be something a little more reasonable.
Okay.
And by the way, when you're dragging these values here, here's a tip. You can see that it's like really hard to control, because subtle movements is what I need, but it's moving it by a lot.
Yes.
If you hold down Shift, that is not incremental. What is it? Smooth movements? Subtle movements, yeah. Anyways, holding down Shift when you need to use small numbers. And Control, by the way, will snap it to increments. So I use that actually quite a lot. Shift for smooth movements and Control for incremental, or both. Smooth, like subtle and incremental. Anyways, all right, I'm giving you all the hotkeys and everything at once. I hope it is not too much for you. All right, I'm going to go for like something like a 0.0015 of icing, because I want it to look somewhat thick, but like not too thick. Okay. Now, something to keep in mind is that this edge here, it looks kind of weird for a lot of reasons. If we went into flat shading mode, you can see that it's created like a hat, a hat on our donut. Okay,
I'm not getting the
same
same
thing. That is the order of our modifiers here. So a modifier is, what is the best way to think of it?
Oh, because
Well,
I'm
it's
negative.
working from top to bottom. That's how we'll describe it. Okay, modifiers are fantastic.
Why is
because
this so
at any
big?
point, we can change these settings. It is a non-destructive way of working. This subdivision setting that I had before, I think it's too high, so I can come in here and I can change these settings. Okay, make it lighter. If it was not, if I was to apply it or I did it a different way, I could not change those settings. Non-destructive. It is fantastic.
Hold on.
It also means that
What the fuck? Why is this so big? Am I in the wrong object? Okay. Modifiers. Add modifier. Solidify. Offset. Why is that so big? Hold on. 0, 1, 5. 0, 1, 0, 0, 5? This doesn't make any sense. Why is it blowing up in all directions? That's what I'm confused on. Maybe I missed a step. Hold on.
yeah, it's working from. Modifier is that this edge here, what is it? Smooth movements? Here's a tip. It is solidify modifier right here. There really needs to be a search function for the modifier stack, but there's just a lot here at the moment. So solidify, okay. Now when we do this, you might not have actually really seen much change. If you went into wireframe mode, which you could do by hitting Z and then dragging to the left to go wireframe, or up here, so this is solid view mode, this is wireframe mode, okay? In wireframe mode, we're able to see just the raw mesh without any faces. You can see that it looks like a donut within a donut, but it's got thickness to it, but it is pointing it in the wrong direction. So this offset setting here from -1, we want to change that to 1. And now go back to solid view. Okay, so that is just like a doona of icing. It's a lot. So we're going to turn our thickness down to be something a little more reasonable. And by the way, when you're dragging these values here, hit icing. And now go back to solid view. Looks like a donut. Okay, the left. You might not have actually really seen the function for the modifier stack, but there's just a lot here at the moment. So solidify. Okay. Now when we do this, you might not have actually really seen much change. If you went in.
What?
To it, okay,
Hold on.
Skin F2. And I can now type in. Is if you select up here in the outliner, you can see 2 objects, and it's probably a good time to name it. Okay. So you can name it by just double clicking in the outliner, and we can call it icing. Another way to name it is if you've just got your object selected anywhere in your 3D viewport. It's the same hotkey as Windows renaming files. It's F2. F2. I can now type in donut, and there we go. So 2 things, and we could organize it however we want.
Okay.
Cool. So our icing is currently looking like a skin tight something. It's got to have some thickness to it, okay? And we can do that with the modifiers. Okay, so going over here to your modifier stack again, we are looking for something called the solidify modifier right here. There really needs to be a search function for the modifier stack, but there's just a lot here at the moment. So solidify, okay. And when we do this, you might not have actually really seen much change.
Okay. Icing, solidify. Not much change. That is correct.
If you went into wireframe mode, which you could do by hitting Z and then dragging to the left to go wireframe, or up here, so this is solid view mode, this is wireframe mode, okay? In wireframe mode, we're able to see just the raw mesh without any faces. You can see that it looks like a donut within a donut, but it's got thickness to it, but it is pointing it in the wrong direction. So this offset setting here from -1, we want to change that to 1. And now go back to solid view. Okay, so that is just a.
Why is it like fucking huge?
Of, icing. It's a lot. So we're going to turn our thickness down to be something a little more reasonable.
This doesn't make any sense to me. It's affecting the wrong object.
Here's a tip. You can see that.
I have this selected, right? Yeah, I have this object selected. Modifier, subdivision. Can I add another modifier? Okay, add a modifier, generate, solidify. It's adding solidify to the other object, which is not what I want. So how do I... Fuck. How do I... There we go. What the fuck? That was super weird. That was super weird. It was still selected
it's
the
like
donut.
really hard to control because
Okay.
subtle movements is what I need, but it's moving it by a lot. If you hold down shift, that is no, not incremental. What is it? Smooth movements? Subtle movements. Yeah. Anyways, holding down shift when you need to use small numbers. And control, by the way, will snap it to increments. So I use that actually quite a lot. So yeah, shift for smooth movements and control for incremental, or both. Smooth, like subtle and incremental. Anyways, all right, I'm giving you all the hotkeys and everything at once. I hope it is not too much for you. All right, I'm gonna go for like something like a 0.0015 of icing because I want it to look somewhat thick, but like not too thick. Okay. Now, something to keep in mind is that this edge here, it looks kind of weird for a lot of reasons. If we went into flat shading mode, you can see that it's basically created like a hat, a hat on our donut. Okay. And the reason for that is the order of our modifiers here. So a modifier is, what is the best way to think of it? Well, it's working from top to bottom. That's how I describe it. Okay, modifiers are fantastic because at any point we can change these settings. It is a non-destructive way of working. This subdivision setting that I had before, I think it's too high. So I can come in here and I can change these settings, okay? Make it lighter. If it was not, if I was to apply it or I did it a different way, I could not change those settings. Non-destructive, it is fantastic. It also means that
Hold on, let's get this shit. Let's get this shit.
Oh my God.
Let's get this shit. Let's get this shit.
Holy shit, that scared the fuck out of me.
Top of the morning, top of the morning, top of the morning, top of the morning, top of the morning. Hold on, let's get this shit. Let's get
Dude,
this shit.
I need to
Let's
switch
get this
my
shit.
fucking
Let's get this shit.
alerts. It does like 12 alerts at the same time. It gives me a heart attack. Ooh. Flame, thank you so much for the raid. How you doing? Oh my goodness. We're learning how to make 3D objects in the program called Blender. I went to school for 3D art and animation, and I went from graduating with a bachelor's in that to never using the degree and working in retail and IT. So I'm learning from scratch. We're making a donut right now. This is how it looks. Not bad so far. Not bad. Looks pretty neat so far. So yeah, a little bit of a study hall sort of thing. What were you up to, Flame? Hope you're doing well. Always good to see you. Make sure you give a shout out to Flame. I know Flame from the Excellent Flex, the Flexcellent X, homies. Drago, bam. Hey, Mr. Freezy. New session, new season just started. Oh, cool. Yeah, Fortnite OG was dog shit. Sorry. I know that was loud. But I hate it. I hated OG Fortnite. That was so fucking lame, dude. It was not fun. Mr. Freesia, sorry. Okay, yes. I'm learning how to make a 3D donut. So, yeah, go lay down, go grab some food, do whatever you need to. Back at it.
Dragging these dots at the top here, just dragging that up, and you can see that now it's doing the, if I just turn that off, it's doing the thickness part first, and then it is smoothing it, which means that that edge there that was like this before is now being forced to go like this because of the subsurf, because it adds those points and then it kind of averages them out, which is, yeah, how subdiv works.
Okay.
There we go. Cool. So now, I don't know, now that thickness doesn't look like enough. So I'll just increase that a little bit, and I'm going to go shade smooth again. Okay. Lovely. Well, we made good time. Yeah, let's just jump to the next video. We're actually going to start modeling in the dripping parts of our icing in the next part, and doing a little bit of sculpting as well. So click here to join me in the next part. I'll see you there.
Sounds good. Modeling.
Join over 1 million.
Okay, hold on really quick. Before I fucking go get my ears blown off by another fucking alert, because Twitch Streamlabs alerts are fucking fucked up. I don't understand why they go multiple times. Like, I only have one alert. I only got one fucking alert, dude. All widgets. Alert box. Copy. Jesus. Raid alerts are enabled. Save setting. Okay. I think I got it. Let me double check something really quick. I need to delete this. Is that different from this one? No, it's not. Okay. Delete that. Oh my God. Okay, I think I fixed it. I think I fixed it. I think I fixed it. Jesus. Okay. We're getting back in. Okay, back into the donut, guys.
3D artists who use Polygon's models and textures to help them make better renders faster. Join for free at polygon.com.
You got it.
Congrats on not giving up yet. It's always fun.
This
Whenever
is
you release
easy.
a multi-part tutorial series, it's just fun seeing like the viewership drop after every part as people quit. So if you did make it,
I'm still here, baby.
You're staying on track. You haven't given up yet. No, I do hope that you can all stay through. In this part, we are going to be making our icing look more like icing, more dribbled down rather than like a yarmulke or a like half of a
I don't know.
bagel or something.
My
Just cut
model
this
looks
in
pretty
half.
good, dude. Right off
Like
the
that,
rip.
pretty close to a bagel. Yeah, it does. We want to make it look more like icing and also make our donut underneath also have a little bit more shape. So, the icing. Okay, now we want to
Okay.
be able to see our mesh and like manipulate things and everything here, but we can't because it's mostly hidden by our solidify modifier.
Yes.
So in your modify stack over here, if we just uncheck this button here, then it will no longer display in edit mode, so I can work with the mesh here. But when I go back to
Uncheck?
object mode, then you can see the solidify modifier again. So that's what we want. Okay, so if I was to move this down by hitting G, I got to turn on my screen keys tool because it's turned off. There we go. If I move this down with G, and then went back to object mode, you can see that we've got something that looks like a little
Object
a
mode.
little dribbly bit. So you can guess we are going to be doing quite a bit
Edit
of that.
mode. Okay.
I'm going to turn on proportional editing, as you could probably guess, so that now when I move down, I can scroll up, or no, scroll down and increase the fall off, and now I can create a big dribbly bit.
Okay.
But you'll notice that straight away, there's a couple of problems. Okay, so
Yeah.
for one, this bit is sticking straight out, and then also this bit of our icing is clipping through the donut, which
Yeah.
would require a whole bunch of fixing and like manually going in there. It's not good. So it would be great if we could make it snap to the face underneath.
Oh.
And there is a feature just for that. Okay. So the snapping tool is right up here. Okay, this little magnet icon. Okay.
Okay.
A quick just overview of snapping. Snapping, you can always, whether you go up there and like turn it on or not, you can always temporarily enable it by holding down Control. Okay.
Oh.
So this default is set to increment. So if I'm moving an object, rotating, scaling, that's transforming. Okay, so it's snap during transform. If I'm moving it, if I just hold down Control as I move it, I am temporarily restricting its movement to the grid floor underneath it, basically, because that's the increment that it's looking at. Okay, so I can only move it when I'm holding down Control to that, and that is the exact same thing as if I was to check that, turn that button on, and then move it without hitting Control. Okay. So there's no
Okay.
difference between holding Control or not holding Control. It functions the exact same way. It's just that this way it lets you do it without having to hold Control, basically. But that's also another good point because there's a hotkey for it. I can't remember what it is, but you sometimes hit it accidentally without realizing, and then you're like, why can't I move things properly? Like it's all messed up, and that's actually a common beginner question. Why can't I move things? Just check that that's not turned on.
Okay, the
just
magnet.
because it's probably turned on.
Okay.
Anyway. Okay, so coming back to our donut here. We want to make sure
object
that's
mode.
turned on, and I want to
Okay.
change it from snap to increment to snap to face. Okay.
To
And now that I do
face.
this, you can see that if I grab this edge here, sorry, that point there, and I just move it down, you can see that part of it is this edge here, at least, or this point, is now snapping to the face. Okay.
Yeah.
But this part is not. Okay. So there. Okay. Okay. I'll try not to say that too much.
Okay, okay.
There is a function for this. Underneath snap to project individual elements, which doesn't explain anything really. Like, there's no way you would know that this is the button to push. There's really no clue that that's what
I
to
don't
do.
have that
But
option.
it is. If we check that now,
I don't
when
have a
we use our
vertices
proportional
selected.
fall off, anything
I
that
do.
falls in the proportional fall off area will now also snap to the face underneath it, and that is how we do it. Now we
What?
can do whatever we want.
Hold
Move it
on.
down. You can see that part of it is this edge here, at least, or this point, is now snapping to the face. Okay.
Okay.
But this part is not. Okay. So there. Okay. Okay.
Okay, okay.
I'll try not to say that too much. There is a function for this. Underneath
Okay.
snap to project individual elements,
I don't have
which
that.
doesn't explain anything really. Like, there's no way you would know that this is the button to push. There's really no clue that that's what to do. But it is. If we check that now, when we use our proportional
But I don't
fall off,
have that.
anything
I don't have that option. What?
snapping to the face. Okay. But this part is not.
Let's start over. Hold on. Okay. The face. Type of element, no. What?
Okay. So there. Okay. Okay. I'll try not to say that too much. There is a function for this. Underneath snap.
Okay, underneath snap to. Okay, here. Snap to face. Snap with. Project individual elements. Is it face project then? No, it's not. Fuck.
To project individual elements, which doesn't explain anything really. Like, there's no way you would know that this is the button to push.
Right.
There's really no clue that that's what to do. But it is. If we check that now, when we use our proportional fall off, anything that falls in the proportional fall off area will now also snap to the face underneath it. And that is how we do it. Now we can do whatever we want here. We can move this around, we can do whatever, and we can make our donut icing look like icing.
Okay, I need to figure out where this is in the new settings, I guess. Face project, maybe it's face nearest? Include edited. Huh.
And it will automatically explain anything really. Like, there's no way you
Snap with closest. So it would be nearest, most likely.
would know that this is the button to push.
Project individual elements. Okay. Maybe this is it? No, it's still fucking up the mesh. Yeah. Fuck, man. Is there an updated tutorial? Have I just been doing the wrong one? Oh, he's got a 4.0 tutorial, bro.
This is Blender, open source 3D software that can be
And
used
he's
to
got
make
music now.
animations,
Fuck.
visual effects, game assets, or practically anything 3D.
Okay, cool.
But if you're on every tool in the world, yeah, like the Suzanne mouse mode, so the same thing. I've just hit the middle mouse, put a link to a cheat if you want to save it. There, exactly where it want to creepy move it. Yes, Z, there we go. And it's now making it a tour.
Okay, basic model.
Now we know how Blender functions become 4 phase. see that donut is now smooth,
Okay.
you could spend
We got pretty far.
to do is go to key map and then I forgot to mention. So what I want to do is I want to select these vertices, the hot literal file extension, really pushing the limits of what a file extension can be. That's save a project or an object learning curve. So you're in it nowadays. So do make use of that.
Okay.
Did you guys know that Blender 4.0 had a change that makes it more realistic by default? Or that there's a new technology that is going to expand the uses for 3D exponentially?
Oh.
Well, you would if you were on my free newsletter called This Week in 3D. It's an email from me once a week with 3 to 5 things that I found interesting that week from the world of 3D.
Cool.
So sometimes I share a new tool that I found, a remarkable tutorial, a new Blender feature, a news story that affects the industry. So click the link in the description, enter your email address, and then you will stay up to date on the world of 3D. It's always free and it's always written by me. Now, on to the tutorial. Welcome back to the Donut Show, where we make sad little donuts that we cannot eat. This is where we finished up at the end of part 1. We've got our nice looking donut.
Okay.
And now we're going to make that object. Oh, it's made it worse. Way around.
Okay.
So, to do this, this is where we get into the fancy, finger magic, because you're typing lots of keys. Anyway, go into edit mode, and we can see straight away that we can't see when you're tabbed in object mode. Let's just the vertices to our donut underneath it, right? So for that, we need to turn on snapping.
There it is. Okay, snapping.
Okay, now there are a number of ways to snap in Blender. The default way is increment, which just means the like the grid floor there. Like if you were to just like move it around, you can see it's just snapping to the grid floor.
Yes.
Not helpful. But we want to snap it to the face. And now with face snapping enabled, if we move this down, we can see, let's just look here, that the bottom bit is snapping to the face. But as you might have seen, the top bits, the rest of essentially what is inside of our circle of influence with this proportional editing, that's not being affected. Only the little point that we had selected was affected.
Okay.
So that's not what we want either. Normally that would be enough, but in this particular case, we want to also snap individual elements to, and let's go face project.
Face project.
Now, when we pull this down, you should see that these are also no longer clipping through the donut. But still, we have issues.
Yes.
Why is that?
Why?
Well, it is actually working correctly. We can see these are not going through the mesh. So why does it look like it is? The reason for that is that there's actually just not enough information here. So if we go side on, you can see, right, like we've got this point here, and then we've got another point down here, and then we've got this long stretch in between, right?
Okay.
So that means that this part of the donut, oh gosh, that goes that goes around like that is just not, there's nothing to snap it to, essentially.
Oh.
So what we need to do to fix this is just add more geometry. So these little vertices here, we need more of those vertices. So we can do that by actually using the subdivision surface modifier. Because although it is a modifier, you can apply the modifier. And the modifier currently is adding geometry, so let's just apply it. So to apply it, we just click this little drop down here next to the modifier, and then go apply. Now, if we, nothing should have changed from this view because the same information's being displayed.
One more time?
Vertices here, we need more of those vertices.
Okay.
So we can do that by actually using the subdivision surface modifier. Because although it is a modifier, you can apply the modifier. And the modifier currently is adding geometry, so let's just apply it. So to apply it, we just click this little drop down here next to the modifier, and then go apply.
Apply.
Now, if we, nothing should have changed from this view because the same information is being displayed. But in edit mode, you should now see exponentially more faces. Because here, where there was, one face
and now I can pull this
before,
down.
you can see there's now a lot more. Right? 4x.
Okay, but
4x.
It is fucking up a little bit on the top. Okay.
Now, if we pull down, we should see it is snapping. And if we go into this mode, you can see that it's now conforming to the mesh in a much more snug way because there's information there for it to use. Now this shading artifact here that we can see, this don't worry about that, we'll fix that in just a moment. But I need to show, because I've shown you like 4 things that we need to enable for this to work. I got to show you one more.
Okay.
Because if I pull down and if I scroll up, you'll see something. Okay, if I was to click, we get this horrible
Yes.
problem here. And I've done this tutorial on enough, and enough people have hit this issue that I need to call it out specifically, because it seems to be a big point that a lot of people just don't know where to go from.
Right.
What's happened is if we use a what's it called, the circle of influence for our
Yes.
proportional editing, if that is so high, it's actually high enough to reach the mesh on the other side of the donut. And then because we've got snapping, it's now projecting that, snapping it to the front, which is creating this like something that's a nightmare to fix.
I gotcha.
It's easier to start from scratch than to try to fix that. So if we want, sorry, there's a lot of noise. To fix this, we need to hide the part of the mesh that we don't want to be influenced by our proportional tool, right? So to do that, there is an easy way to do it. We can actually do it very precisely. So if with this middle bit of our donut here, if I just hold down Alt and then do a left click, as I mentioned before, that selects the ring, okay? And we could do that all the way up, but actually there's a little, I don't know if it's an Easter egg. It's kind of a cool tool that not many people know about. Control plus. That will enable the select more tool. And if you use control plus, control minus goes the other way, you can see that it's expanding out. So control plus will just like select the next vertice along a chain, roughly speaking. And you can see we can very quickly select all the parts of the mesh that we don't need.
One more time?
Many people know about. It's kind of a proportional tool, right?
Okay.
So to do that, there is an easy way to do it. We can actually do it very precisely. So if with this middle bit of our donut here, if I just hold down Alt and then do a left click, as I mentioned before, that selects the ring.
Oh, cool.
And we could do that all the way up, but actually there's a little, I don't know if it's an Easter egg. It's kind of a cool tool that not many people know about. Control plus.
Control.
That will enable the select more tool. And if you use control plus, control minus goes the other way, you can see that it's expanding out. So control plus will just like select the next vertice along a chain, roughly speaking. And you can see we can very quickly select all the parts of the mesh that we don't need. Right?
Okay.
Very cool. By the way, if control plus doesn't work for you because you're on a laptop or something else, select more, less. You can also do it.
Okay.
Here. Anyways, to hide this part of the mesh, it's H. H for hide.
H for hide.
So when you're in this state, it looks as though it's been deleted. It's very, sometimes you don't know where part of your mesh is and you forgot that you've got hide turned on. If parts of your mesh are hidden and you want to bring it back, it's Alt H. So H to hide and then Alt H to bring it back. Or if you can't remember it for whatever reason, you can also find it. Okay, it's underneath mesh. There we go.
What?
Mesh. Reveal hidden or hide selected. Okay, so that's the other way.
Dude, what the fuck
you can get my keyboard shortcut that's in the link. It's free.
Oh, the whole
Just
thing.
Use that and then you won't forget a lot of these handy shortcuts. All right, so now finally, after all that, after 4 different ways and problems to explain, we can now take part of this mesh and drag it down, and it will work correctly. Haha. So now we get to now finally be an artist and go like, what sort of, edge or what sort of icing do I want to make this look like? So what I'm doing here, by the way, is I'm hitting G to pull it down, and then I'm just single middle click, and then because my cursor is closest to the Z-axis, it's now snapping it to the Z-axis. So that's why I mentioned before that it's really handy. You don't have to think of the letter and type it in. You just go in the general direction you want to go, and then just tap the middle click of the, which is your scroll wheel, right? Middle click. It's such a weird button that you have to call it out. It's the scroll wheel button, because it's like no other application seems to use it besides scrolling. But Blender is like, no, we're going to use it for like.
Wait, why am I getting vertices that are like
of the operations?
Jaggedly?
It's going to be middle click. But anyways, as you can see, I'm not paying particularly too much attention to it, but I'm just making a wavy looking shape around it. You might also want to make some bits that go the opposite direction, right? And then maybe pull, so you've got like big shapes as well as medium shapes and some small shapes, big, medium, small. It's the recipe for appealing design, big, medium, and small details. But I digress. By the way, I should mention, if you're stuck, don't feel bad, because there was certainly a lot of lot of finickiness going on with this donut here, and we're definitely in the steep part of that curve at the moment. Do make use of my Discord if you are stuck. I created it literally so that people could get instantaneous help. I don't have any other benefit for it, so it's there so that you can find help. Link is in the description, and there's like donut help chat room where you can post screenshots of your problem and then
Donut
people can
help
each
chat
other
room,
out. So
dude.
do make use of that. Now, our shading issue here, this darkened edge, is actually going to fix itself by fixing another issue. So it's a two birds, one solution kind of problem. This 90-degree edge here for this icing, not ideal. Everybody knows that a real icing would create like a rounded edge there, right?
Right.
So we can fix that just by adding another subsurf modifier. Because you might remember I mentioned, like, yes, if you've got 3 vertices, it'll create like another vertice here and another vertice here, but it'll also like round it out. It'll pull this one back, so you end up with a rounded corner. So right here in your modifier stack, we're going to go add modifier, generate subdivision surface. Now, the order of these does matter, okay? You want your solidifier at the top and the subdivision after it. So Blender works top to bottom. And
Hold on, let me get my icing in place, bro. You're a wizard, okay? I am a fresh Blender Baboi. I'm still trying to get this donut all straightened away. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist here. Go up, down. I want like a really big dip here. What if I select here? Let's do select more than one vertice. Here we go. Kind of looks like cheese. Kind of like cheese. Okay.
it's important it's in this way because you want the extrusion to happen first, and then in order to round that edge, it has to happen as a secondary step. So solidify on top, subdivision underneath. Now, whilst we're here and we're looking at the close-up, this little profile of this edge of this icing, another issue to call out, you can see it's got this this shape that goes around. Yes, so far so good. But then it goes up. And it's like, it'll be better if it went around and then tucked in and touched the edge of it, because that would look more like real liquid would. So we can solve that by just changing one of the settings in the solidify modifier. It's not one of those things that you would figure out or know where it is. It's just over time you learn where some of these settings are.
Okay.
But essentially here, the edge data. So we want to change the edge data to say that before you do the solidify step, add a crease on the inner part right here. If we increase this all the way to 1, it now creates a sharpened edge just on that inner part there. So the rest of it is a smoothed edge, but the middle one, there's a crease, so it's making a sharp edge there. And it just gives it, it's just a little bit more realism. Just looks a little bit closer to what you would imagine real icing would do.
Yeah.
Okay, now for the cool bit. All right. So if you look at reference of donuts, right? Yes, you've got these little wavy bits, but where the icing is really liquidy, it'll often break off from this wave here, and it'll create a trail that goes down underneath the donut, right? It just sort of drips all the way down. Whoops, bumped the microphone. So we can do that, but not the way we were doing it before. If we just took one of these points and then like dragged it all the way down like that, there wouldn't be enough information there, right? You can see you just get this like stretched look, and it doesn't look great, okay?
Okay.
So essentially we need to give it more information, and we couldn't just do it by like adding more and more subdivision surfaces. We need to actually like break this shape here and create a new shape that goes down. So we need to extrude. So if I select this vertice and then the one next to it by holding down Shift, I don't think I mentioned it, but yeah, if you want to select two things at once, it's Shift Select. Anyways, so if we select two vertices like that, we want to extrude it downward by hitting E. So when you tap E, it's similar to G in that you're in a placement state now, saying where do you want to place this? So I'm going to move it down to, like about there where I want the trail to stop, and I'm just going to do click, left click, and it's now placed it there. Okay. Now, it's hard to see it, but if I just switch to wireframe, you can see what it's doing. So it's created this breakaway shape here, an entirely new face that's completely separate to what we've got there currently. And what this means is if we go to object mode, you can see it's not just like continuing this form here, it's pulled it down, right? Which is exactly what we want. And in fact, I want it to go even further than that. So I'm going to select those two vertices, and I'm going to pull it down again.
Okay.
And then I'll do it again. And the reason I've done this 1, 2, 3 is that this detail here is important so that it conforms to the shape of the donut. Because if there's not enough, you're going to have that clipping issue that I showed you earlier. So that's pretty good. And now we're going to do it again.
Okay.
Originally in my earlier versions of the donut, I only did like one of these, but then I noticed that in the render, the final render, it's often the
These
most
aren't
interesting
connected,
part of the donut. So now I'm thinking, yeah, just do it all the way around the donut. Just add the bit that looks cool. Add more of that. So here, so wherever there's essentially like a big dip is what I'm looking for. Like where the liquid would sort of build up and then like the surface tension there would be just too much and then it would break away.
I'm not getting squares.
Down.
Hold on. Let me
Down underneath like that. And we'll do another one here. Why not? Stretched look, saying where do you want to. And what this means is if we go to object mode, you can see it's not just like continuing this form here. It's pulled it down, right? Which is exactly what we want. And in fact, I want it to go even further than that. So I'm going to select those two vertices, and I'm going to pull it down again. And then I'll do it again. And the reason I've done this 1, 2, 3 is that this detail here is important so that it conforms to the shape of the donut. Because if there's not enough, you're going to have that clipping issue that I showed you earlier. So that's pretty good. And now we're going to do it again. Originally in my earlier versions of the donut, I only did like one of these, but then I noticed that in the render, the final render, it's often the most interesting part of the donut. So now I'm thinking, yeah, just do it all the way around the donut. Just add the bit that looks cool. Add more of that. So here, so wherever there's essentially like a big dip is what I'm looking for. Like where the liquid would sort of build up and then like the surface tension there would be just too much and then it would break away.
I don't like how that looks.
And it would go down.
I understand what he's trying to do.
Down underneath.
But I don't
like
know if that suits
And we'll do another
what
one
I
here.
have.
Why not? Like that. And
Maybe if I
down,
move this.
and down. And that's pretty good. Haha. Lovely. So that
Move this out.
concludes finally this heavy part of the tutorial. So if you're ready to watch the next part, hope you're not giving up. You can click there on the screen. And
I haven't
Make sure you
given
hit
up.
subscribe as well if you haven't. A large number of you don't. But if you want to see more Blender tutorials, that's what you need to do. Self-promotion right there. Thanks, guys. See you in the next part.
Okay. I can't get this to...
Congrats. You didn't give up. You made it to part 4. You clicked on the next part of the video. There's always like less viewers each video as you go down. So you're here. Well done. Thumbs up. As you can tell by the title of this video, we're going to learn about sculpting. But first, I should call out, if you have a problem with your mesh now, those problems can be amplified the further you go along.
Yes.
So it helps to do a technical check now, make sure you don't have any problems before we move along. So to look for it, go into edit mode. And first of all, by the way, if you can't see that middle part of your mesh, it's because you remember we temporarily hit it. So you can bring it back by hitting Alt-H, and that will bring back the rest of the mesh.
Cool.
And then we're looking for issues with the mesh,
Yes.
like right here. So this is a really common problem following this tutorial, because when you're projecting parts of the mesh, if it was like side on to the camera, it will project it that way, and then you can have like overlapping parts of the mesh. So that creates this artifact here, which will be exaggerated when we add more detail to it. So we just want to drag that back. So turn on snapping, and I'll keep proportional turned off, and then I'm just going to move this back over here just to move each of these points back. Another very common problem is you might have parts that have separated from your mesh.
Yes.
Now you can quickly fix this if you just like selected the point and then hit G to move it. When you're in that state, it's also snapping it to the mesh. Now you could do that all the way along, like select, tap G, then click, select, tap G, then click. But anybody's got time for that. Let's make Blender do the work for us. So there's a tool that's just designed for this, and it's called the Shrink Wrap Modifier. So over to our trusty modifier stack, we're going to add yet another modifier. So add modifier. It's not under generate, it's under deform, which we haven't accessed before. New modifiers. Ooh, the one we're looking for is shrink wrap.
Shrink wrap.
And first of all, hasn't done anything because it needs to know what the target is. What is the mesh that we're shrink wrapping our mesh to? So with this little eyedropper tool, you can see when you've clicked it, my cursor's changed to an eyedropper. And now if I hover over objects, I got the name of it. So I want to click on the object that is the donut, and now it's snapped to the donut and made it worse. Why,
Yes.
Andrew, would you make us do that?
Offset?
Remember, the order of your modifier stack matters. So the reason this happened is because we've done it after the solidify mod. So if it works top to bottom, we want the shrink wrap to happen before any of the extrusion happens. So now that it's there, it's correct. And this is what it looks like before, and this is after. And it's subtle, right?
Oh, this
And you'll
one's
probably
fucked up.
see this across your mesh, like little subtle changes where maybe it just separated off the mesh, which wasn't quite a perfect alignment, but this will just correct that.
Oh
So,
my God.
Great. We don't need this here now. We can just apply it because it was just a once-off operation, and now all our mesh should be perfectly flat. And assuming you haven't got any other issues going on, again, make sure you use my Discord. If you do have issues and you need someone to help, make use of the community. So use that and post your problem, and I'm sure people can help out.
Forward error.
All right, so we want to do some sculpting. Now, why do we want to sculpt? Well, because if you look at reference
We're going to leave
photos
that alone. That's
of,
fine.
Donuts with icing on them, you'll see that icing is obviously a liquid, and liquid does weird things. One of the weird things that it does is that it will pool in certain areas. It's not like a uniform amount all the way on it. So the most obvious being like at the end of this trail here, there would be more that would accumulate at the end there. And I think the reason for it is that because it's a viscous fluid, once it runs out of enough fluid, there's not enough to kind of push it forward, but there's enough for it to build up. So you would have like a buildup here on each of these ends, but you would also have buildups all along the edge. And you can see it in reference photos. Like here, we've got this like clear, was it like a glaze? And basically the areas there where it looks whiter, that's a thickened area. So we essentially want to replicate that across our donut. So we can't do that currently. Like if you go into edit mode, we don't have any mesh to work with because the extrusion, the thickened part is happening via this modifier. So we need to make the modifier real. So again, we're just going to apply it. Drop down, apply. Now in edit mode, we have that part of the mesh to work with. So we could, if you wanted to, come in here and like select the points that you want to add, you know, a bulge to, and then very carefully come in and tap G, and then, oh, I've got snapping turned on, turn that off. Pull this out, right? And go like that and go, yep, there's a little bulge there, but that's very tedious to first select a point, then tap a key to move it. It's very tedious. So that's really like you just need to use another tool to do the job.
Okay.
So edit mode is one tool, and it's good for like very precise things when you need to get precise things. But for more like organic shapes, more freehand stuff, that's where sculpting comes in. So at the top here, we've just been flipping between object and edit mode, but the one underneath it is sculpt mode.
Okay.
So when we go into that mode, you'll see that we have on the left-hand side all of these tools that appear. And I mean, this isn't a sculpting like tutorial, really. We're just really going to scratch the surface.
Wow.
But they do different things, different sculpting things. Like let's just use the default tool here. Can't really see much happening. Let's just turn up the strength and the size of it. Like it just pulls out that part of it. And even that quick little one stroke, imagine if you had to select each of those points and pull them out one by one. Like that's why this tool is the appropriate tool for this kind of job, right? Because it's very quickly going to enable us to add lots of complex shape. Very cool. So the tool that we're looking for is actually, it's this one, the inflate brush, which is just conveniently the I hotkey, inflate.
Okay.
By the way, if you want to change the size of brushes in Blender, I mean, you've got these ones here. You've also got the strength slider here. But there is a hotkey just to change the size of the brush with F. So F to change the size of the brush. And you just pull out with your cursor to make it bigger and then pull in to reduce it and then do a single left click to confirm. You can also change the strength with Shift F. So Shift F, pull out, click, and then Shift F, pull in, click. Anyways, so if I was to draw on this, you can see that I'm inflating that edge. I can also inflate here, but you very quickly realize, like, look at that. Look at that. What is that, right? The eye is going to see that. As a pro tip, your eye is like, if you're going low res, don't go low res for things that are round, because your eye is very quickly going to spot low poly things. Actually, just last night I was playing Spider-Man, the Miles Morales one, and there was like this coffee cup that was on a table, and then you walk, and it looks fine, like as a background asset, but then part of it, the mission, you had to go up and read something on the table, and you had to get close to this coffee cup, and it was like 8 vertices. It just looked like almost looked like a nut on a wheel of a car, right? Just like that jagged. So, anyways, what I'm saying is this is a rounded form, so we need more information. We need more detail to sculpt on. The reason this is jagged and the reason there's not enough detail here is that just even though we have a subsurf modifier, a subdivision modifier, it's applying it after we do the sculpt mode. So when you're in sculpt mode, it's still just using your raw mesh here, and then it does this as a secondary step. So if we want to sculpt into this detail, we need to apply this. So I'm going to use more than one. I'm going to use 2 because I want to have even more detail. So importantly, by the way, if you're applying a subdivision modifier, even though you've got 2 levels here, it will always use just the viewport. So your render amount here could be whatever, but when you hit apply, it's just going to apply whatever is in the viewport. So I'm going to go 2 levels and hit apply. Now look at this. We have 16 times the detail.
Oh, God.
Because we had level 1, which would be
mine is way too many.
4x of 4x
Hold on.
multiply, and then 4x of 4x, 16. So we have 16 times the vertices.
What's my current?
So now when we go into sculpt mode, look at it now. When we sculpt, look at that. So much more room to work with, and much more fun. So
That's
now that
way
I'm in
too
that
much.
state, I'm going to just do little circles with this brush on each of these
I'm gonna
points
do
here.
one.
And the reason I'm doing like little circles like this is that by default, the stroke state is, space. You can switch it to airbrush if you want, and then you can just click and hold it there. But I find that to actually be like harder to control. So I just keep it in space mode and then just do like little circles. And then that enables you to just kind of continue adding more pressure as you move your mouse. So a little circle like that. And there you go. Very quickly, already we have a more interesting looking shape across it.
Oh.
So another brush, another tool, I guess you call. Is it a brush? Or I think these technically are called brushes. But anyways, another one that you use all the time is grab, and conveniently it's the hotkey G. And what this does is just like pushing clay with your finger. It's like,
Okay.
It's really cool. And the reason I'm doing this is I'm actually just exaggerating the design. Because that is what makes appealing design. It's exaggerating the addition and subtraction that you see in a shape, even though in the real world you might not see this like tapered thing like that. Because it's got this bulbous end, you want to draw more attention to that kind of globule at the end there. And to do that, if you just make this a little bit tapered using this tool, it can do that. And we get to learn about a new tool in Blender, which is the whole point of this tutorial. So, yeah. All right.
It's like folded in on itself. I don't know how that happened.
Just click and drag. I can change the shape, size of the brush with F. And you've got more time than me. So maybe make this better than what I'm doing really quickly. But just get, generally a shape like that, and it should look a little nicer. Okay, so now let's do that raised edge all the way around the rim of this. Now, in previous versions of this tutorial, I said just use the inflate brush and then just like draw across it. The problem with this is that this is so imprecise, and you can accidentally like draw over another bit, and then you look at it side on and you get these like noticeable like divots across the donut. And it's not very... it's very hard to do because you keep like accidentally clicking off it and then on it, and you get this like jagged like dig. It's not very appealing. The point is, so let's go back. We can learn about another tool. It's another excuse to learn about another tool, and that tool is called the mask tool. So it's actually in the list here, but I never remember what it is. It's you just hit M for mask, and it's this one. And what this enables you to do is, if you just draw on it, you get this grade shape, right? And then when you're using another tool, like say you switch to the inflate brush now, and if you draw over this, let me just increase this. Yeah, if you drew over this, you can see it's applying an inflation to everything except the area that is dark.
Ooh, okay.
And that's how you can create like, you know, a skin lesion on a zombie or something like
Oh,
that.
interesting.
So a mask is very useful in sculpting, used a lot. And we're going to use it in just this case. What we're going to do is mask out just this area along the rim there. And then we're going to apply a constant inflate value to just the area that we've masked. So first use the mask tool. Mask, and it doesn't really make sense to use like a half opaque mask, so we're going to set the strength all the way to 1, and then I'll use a brush size about here. So essentially, where do I want the inflation? Like, do I want this much inflation on the rim? No, probably something about here. And then I'm just going to paint a darkened value all the way across it.
Okay. One sec.
Everything on it, you get this grade.
Okay, so that is this. He wants us to paint
shape mask, and it doesn't really make sense to use like a half opaque mask, so we're going to set the strength all the way to 1, and then I'll use a brush size about here. So essentially, where do I want the inflation? Like, do I want this much inflation on the rim? No, probably something about here. And then I'm just going to paint a darkened value all the way across it. I just want to make sure that it's, you know, fairly even. It doesn't have to be completely perfect, but fairly even across it. And I obviously don't want it to be in this part because that, you know, the liquid has flowed all the way down and it's broken the trail and it's gone down there. So I don't want any raised area there. And again, I apologize if this was like tedious, but it's
no, it's
it's a way to learn Blender piece by piece. Okay, hey. Speaking of which, I forgot. With the sculpt tools in Blender, for whatever reason, it has assumed by default that you might want to sculpt on the other side of your mesh. So you can see I've got this smear here, and that's because somewhere I was painting over here, I went through the mesh and it painted on the other side of the mesh over there. Very annoying. So
that explains some of
I'm
my
gonna
shit.
undo it. It's just easier than like repainting that whole thing.
Yeah.
And what you want to do with your mask tool is underneath brush, set it to front faces only. And that means when you paint, it should mean that as you draw, it could still happen, just be careful. But it should happen less. It shouldn't happen like on the opposite side of the same mesh.
Now I go back
Anyways,
to this
it should
one?
happen less. By the way, I didn't call it out because it's not essential, but if you do ever want to isolate and
that's
only
cool.
see the selected object, / is the isolation mode. So / on the number pad or the actual normal keyboard will pull you in and out of that state. Anyway, so now with the mask brush, with front faces only enabled, I can paint along it, and it should happen less, essentially.
Okay, cool.
All right. I don't know what to say, but this doesn't take long once you've set it up.
Goopy.
And assuming you've got the strength of 1, by the way, you don't want to have areas with like half opaque, right? Because we want to have a constant value across it as we inflate it.
Nice.
And we should get a nice raised edge that goes all the way along the donut.
Interesting.
Okay, great. Just clean it up if you got any areas that look a little untidy, a little unkempt. Yep.
Yeah, some of my mesh is messed
All right.
up, but
So, as I mentioned, the mask
that.
will actually mask out the area, so you can't paint on it. We obviously want to only paint on the area that we mask.
I don't know if I
we
can
want
fix
to
that
invert
without-
it by just hitting Control-I, same hotkey as Photoshop, etc. And then, obviously, if we went to the inflate brush and then we just painted, like, yes, we're only now painting onto that area, but it also doesn't solve our problem of like different values across it. So we want to apply a uniform inflation on just these areas. So there is a tool in
wait, 1 second. You said invert it?
Like, yeah, you don't want to have areas with like half opaque, right? Because we want to have a constant value across it as we inflate it.
Okay.
And we should get a nice raised edge that goes all the way along the donut. Okay, great. Just clean it up if you got any areas that look a little untidy, a little unkempt. Yep. Awesome. All right. So, as I mentioned, the mask will actually mask out the area, so you can't paint on it. We obviously want to only paint on the area that we mask. So we want to invert it by just hitting Control-I, same hotkey as Photoshop, etc. And then, obviously, if we went to the inflate brush and then we just painted, like, yes, we're only now painting onto that area, but it also doesn't solve our problem of like different values across it. So we want to apply a uniform inflation on just these areas. So there is a tool in the sculpt tools called, where is it? Mesh Filter. So I will be honest, it's probably the laziest implementation of a tool in Blender. Like, mesh filters, they're not really well documented. You kind of have to just learn how they work. But unlike all these other brushes here, the way this one works is it's applying a uniform value to the entire mesh. So it doesn't actually matter where you click on the mesh, it's going to apply it. And it's applying what is in the filter types listed here. So if I just click, this is the other thing I have to learn. If I drag to the right, I'm inflating. If I drag to the left, I'm deflating and sort of subtracting the opposite direction. You just kind of have to learn that that's how this specific tool works. My theory is, by the way, to go on a rant, ZBrush's user experience and interface is so arcane, so badly hodgepodge together from ideas over the last 2 decades. They never had any thought in the process. They just lumped it all in there.
Right.
And Blender's sculpting tools competes with that. So they're like, hey, yeah, the filter tools, yeah, they're not the easiest to understand, but at least we're not ZBrush. That's my theory. It's my working theory I'm going with. But anyways, point is now that we're in this, you could see we're applying a uniform value to everything. Hooray for us. I might also, I'm going to set the strength of this to 0.1, and that just means that as I move the cursor, it's applying less of a value for the movement, so I can use smaller movements. The other thing though is this is a little like, it almost looks, if we go into object mode, it looks like a tube almost around the edge of it. It's not very nice. It basically, the edge that we've got here is too hard. So we can smooth out that edge by using mask, smooth mask. Okay. Now, if we use the inflate, just tilts to the right a little bit. I'm just going to go with that. Let's go object mode and see how that looks. That's pretty good. I might actually go just a little bit more, just exaggerate it slightly more. There we go. Great. So yeah, that's roughly it. Now there's a little bit of artifacting there because the way the mask works is it's kind of that feathering thing. It's not very exact and it's kind of got some values in between it. So we can smooth that out in sculpt mode by first of all just clearing the mask and then using the smooth tool. By default, it's too high, so just turn it down. And I'm just going to smooth that edge, and that'll just sort of clear up some of this artifacting. It's a little too high. For whatever reason, the smooth tool, which also you can access at any point when you're in sculpt mode, just by holding down shift, and it'll temporarily invoke the smooth tool, and it'll use the value that is on the smooth tool. So you'll be in this mode and then you hold down shift and it'll actually not use this value, but the value that's on the smooth tool. Again, ZBrush is the competitor, so some things are a little weird here. Anyways.
How do I disable my mask,
a little too high. Just turn it down and now we've got a nice value. And I'm just smoothing this out just to clear up some of the artifacting all the way around.
Wait, hold on. He just like completely...
And then, but anyways, point is now that we're in this, you could see we're applying a uniform value to everything. Hooray for us. I might also, I'm going to set the strength of this to 0.1, and that just means that as I move the cursor, it's applying less of a value for the movement, so I can use smaller movements. The other thing though is this is a little like, it almost looks, if we go into object mode, it looks like a tube almost around the edge of it. It's not very nice. It basically, the edge that we've got here is too hard. So we can smooth out that edge by using mask, smooth mask. Okay. Now, if we use the inflate, just tilts to the right a little bit. I'm just going to go with that. Let's go object mode and see how that looks. That's pretty good. I might actually go just a little bit more, just exaggerate it slightly more. There we go. Great. So, yeah, that's roughly it. Now, there's a little bit of artifacting there because the way the mask works is it's kind of that feathering thing. It's not very exact, and it's kind of got some values in between it.
Sure.
So we can smooth that out in sculpt mode by, first of all, just clearing the mask and then using the smooth tool. By default, it's too high, so just turn it down. And I'm just going to smooth that edge, and that'll just sort of clear up some of this artifacting. It's a little too high. For whatever reason, the smooth tool, which also you can access at any point when you're in sculpt mode just by holding down shift, and it'll temporarily invoke the smooth tool, and it'll use the value that is on the smooth tool. So you'll be in this mode, and then you hold down shift, and it'll actually not use this value, but the value that's on the smooth tool. Again, ZBrush is the competitor, so some things are a little weird here. Anyways, so it's a little too high. Just turn it down, and now I've got a nice value. And I'm just smoothing this out just to clear up some of the artifacting.
Okay.
All the way around the mesh. Ba-doop, boop, boop. And that's it. Lovely. Hey, if you've made it this far,
I did.
3D is in the cards. It's for you because
Yeah.
we've done some fairly complex things. So if you're a beginner and you're just getting started in Blender, congrats, because it is a steep learning curve, but you have learned some very complex modeling and some sculpting. So congrats, you've made it this far. Why not continue on the series? Click here to see.
I think it's a good idea.
This is where we finished at the end of the last part, and we are ready for some materials. Before we continue, do a check over though, because I looked inside my donut and I saw this, which shouldn't be here,
It's a YouTube
obviously.
subscribe button.
Make sure you don't have any hidden meshes that should definitely not be there. You've only got your camera, your donut, your icing, and your light, okay? Okay, so materials. Let's do some materials. If we jump into our render
You
mode,
3D modeled a
button that
YouTube subscribe button. That is, I love that.
I showed you on the first part.
Well done,
It takes
Andrew.
you into rendered view mode. You can see we've got a lamp and it's lighting.
By the way, if you guys are listening to this, you're wondering what I'm watching. This is Blender Guru on YouTube. Here is the link, if you'd like to, give this a shot.
Our donut in a very depressing cold gray. So let's give it a
Yes.
material down here, the little material tab, and then we're going to hit new.
Are you in
So
object
just
mode
like
right
before,
now?
the one thing we're going
Yes.
to change is the color. Let's make it a nice.
Okay, 1 second. You said material. We have to give it a material. World properties, material. Okay, material.
Pink color.
Is that under the modifiers? No, material, new. Okay.
And that looks pretty good. The other value that you typically want to change for a lot of objects is the roughness value. So you can see the further I go all the way to the left-hand side, the more it becomes a mirror. So all the way at 0 is basically a mirror.
Well, let me start that
Our
again.
render mode, that little button that I showed you on the first part that takes you into rendered view mode. You can see we've got a lamp and it's lighting our donut in a very depressing cold gray. So let's give it a material down here, the little material tab, and then we're going to hit new. So just like
Okay.
before, the one thing we're going to change is the color. Let's make it a nice pink color. And that looks pretty good. The other value that you typically want to change for a lot of objects is the roughness value. So you can see the further I go all the way to the left-hand side, the more it becomes a mirror. So all the way at 0 is basically a mirror. And then all the way to the right is your most porous object, like a brick or something like that. Basically something that looks like it doesn't have reflection, although everything does. The roughness is just merely dissipating that reflection.
69
everywhere, so it
roughness.
appears as though it doesn't. But anyways, so we're going to go with like a 0.3, something like that. It's pretty good. And then for the base of our donut, we're going to give it another material, and let's go with a nice orangey yellow, which we will change later on, so it won't matter anyway. But that's good. Great. Look at us. We've got a donut. By the way, we'll add some subsurface SSS later on to make this look a little bit more milky, but for now, this is good. Now, we want to put our donut onto a marble countertop. So first of all, we need that countertop as a separate object. So Shift A, and the one we're looking for is again under Mesh, and we're going to go with a plane. So a plane is just a square that's literally made up of 4.
Shift A. Switches to edit mode, Shift A. Shift A. Shift A. Okay, that did not work.
Onto a marble countertop. So first of all, we need that countertop as a separate object. So Shift A, and the one we're looking for is again
Shift A, but he's in object mode. Okay, object mode, Shift A. Is it because I'm still in the materials? Do I need to be in the scene? Shift A. No. Shift A. Okay, well, I'll just add. I don't know what the... Shift A is not working. Shift A. Scale, location, animate. That's weird. That's weird. Okay.
and under mesh, and we're going to go with a plane. So a plane is just a square that's literally made up of 4 vertices. It's the simplest object, but the most versatile, that you use it all over the place. And I'm gonna make this look a little bit bigger. So let's just scale that out with S and then click. Okay, so we wanna make our donut rest onto the countertop. So if I selected my donut base and moved it up, well, there's a problem, right? We need to have both of these move together. So if you want to have one object basically attached to another object while still being its own separate object, you parent it. So the way we parent it is, first of all, you select the object that you want to follow the other object, so the child, and then you select the parent. So holding down Shift, I'm going to now click on the donut base, and then to parent, it's Control P. Okay. Or again, if at any time you don't know what it is, just hit F3 for search, and then we can just type in parent. Now, by the way, with parent, you get a number of options here. The one you actually want is keep transform. If you just do object, it means if you've ever moved the object like off its base.
What the fuck? I'm not getting these same shortcuts. If I had to guess, I'm assuming that because I started the old tutorial, there was something in the settings that he enabled. Okay.
Base or whatever like that, it'll then like clear its position. So it's actually not the one you want most of the time. So it's that you want to follow the other object, so the child, and then you select the parent. So holding down Shift, I'm going to now click on the donut base, and then to parent, it's Control P.
Control P.
Okay? Or again, if at any time you don't know what it is, just hit F3 for search, and then we can just type in parent. Now, by the way, with parent, you get a number of options here.
Parent to object?
The one you actually want is keep transform. If you just do object, it means if you've ever moved the object like off its base or whatever like that, it'll then like clear its position. So it's actually not the one you want most of the time. So it's keep transform. Now that I've done that, if you've done it in the correct order, you should be able to select the base and then move it, and the icing should go with it. If it doesn't, it means it's probably parented the other way. So again, make sure the object you want to follow the other one is selected first, and then the parent is selected last. Okay. So now I'm going to move that up along its Z-axis. So G, and then just middle tap and pull it up till it's resting on my counter. Haha, lovely. Now don't worry about this looking like cartoonishly bad in terms of realism. I'm going to show you a button later on, which is just going to make this look phenomenally realistic. That's going to be in some later parts. But for now, this is fine just whilst we work and piece the scene together. So for our countertop here, we need to give it a new material. And then underneath the base color, you can select not just a color by clicking the color, but the little dot next to it, that little yellow thing doesn't look like a button. It is. If you click that, you get this this pop-up or pop-down in this point.
Texture.
Which just gives you a number of options. And the one that we're looking for is image texture. So essentially, it's replacing that import from a flat color to an image texture property. And it's now black, and it's asking you what image texture. So we need an image texture. Now we could go to just Google Images and just find any old marble texture, download that. The problem usually with textures on the web is that what most people call a texture is not ideal for 3D. Most textures
Right.
are good for websites, but for 3D, we need extra information to tell the 3D software how the material property looks. Like, how does it reflect light? What do the bumps look like across the surface? And all that information is never available on these sites. So to find those textures, you have to go to a separate dedicated website. And the website that I recommend is Polygon. And the reason I recommend it is because it's mine.
Polygon.
It's my website. That's why I recommend it. No,
Wait.
I started it 8 years ago because I was pretty dissatisfied with the quality of the texture websites that were available at the time. So I used my YouTube money to invest in a team and some high-tech equipment. We went out into the world and we scanned stuff to a very high quality standard. And over the years, we've grown it to include models
awesome.
and HDRIs as well.
What a
And
good fucking
obviously, a lot of
dude.
this stuff is
What?
paid, but we also have a free range. And obviously, we're going to be using a free texture for this part. So this is the free texture. This is the one we're going to use. And first of all, although it is free, you do need to sign up for an account. So you can just sign up with Google. That's usually the easiest one. It's a couple of onboarding questions. I would like to actually know how you, are you a professional? Are you a student? That's kind of interesting to me to know that. And then when you get to here, you're just going to say continue with free account. But power through that. And if you click the link in the description, again, this is the marble, and we just want to hit download. And you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner, it's downloading. It is a large size, but this is because it's 8K and we've got maps at like 16-bit depth to get all of that accurate information there. But once it is finished, it'll just appear in your downloads. Then you just unzip the zip file as you would normally. And then finally, you should see some glorious high-resolution images and ones with extra information like roughness. Very, very subtle, but will come through when we do the render. So back into Blender, where we've got that image texture, we're going to click on Open. Then navigate to where you unzip.
Chill out. He's got a add-on now. That's cool. Dude, what a cool guy. He made this whole like high-res image library and it's like $30 a month or whatever. That's pretty fucking cool, man. Download and import faster. I think I need to download Blender outside. I'm running it through Steam. I probably should just have it running by itself. I think that's probably going to slow me down quite a bit. That's cool. What a neat dude. Can't believe he made this whole image library. That's nuts. How much is the pricing for this? 50 credits. 5 textures, 2 models, or 5 HDRIs. $30 a month, 200 credits a month. Team plan. Nuts. Yeah, this is really accessible too. Like for anybody who's like looking to get into this, that's nuts. That's nuts. Explore what's new. What else you got in here? Crazy. I didn't think we'd be seeing something like this. I remember when I was in school, like we had to just go on Google, you know, and pull a texture. And that sucked. This is rendered. How cool is that? That's pretty neat. Wow, he has full Blender models in here too. Neat. Dude, he's cheesing hard. He's so excited about this plugin.
The new Polygon add-on lets you browse and download over 5,000 materials, models, and HDRs inside of Blender. To install it, you're going to go to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, then click Install, and install the zip file that you can find in the description.
Okay.
You're going to go to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons,
Edit, Preferences, Add-ons. Add-ons. Install.
then click Install and install the zip file that you can find in the description. Then check this box and you're good to go. Then push N for Nelly to bring up the properties and then click the Polygon tab. Now, depending on when you see this video, you might see a one-click easy browser sign-on, but for now, I'm just going to type in my username and password and log in. Now you can see a live connection of every asset on the website. I can scroll down or middle click drag to scroll through the list. So let's say I want to get this asset right here. Just need to click purchase, which is going to both purchase it and kick off a download for the asset. And you can see the progress bar here. Now, once this finishes downloading, I now need to click one more button, which is import, and that has...
Okay. Wow, that downloads much quicker. Interesting. This is really cool, guys. Like, so when I was going to school, I didn't have a computer that was strong enough to like do this shit. And all of this stuff was like largely inaccessible. Like, I couldn't do this stuff at school without the help of a teacher, and teachers only worked during class. There was like after school help and stuff, and there was really good teachers, don't get me wrong, but there was only like 3 really great teachers when I was going to school. We didn't have cloud computing at all. So you were transporting your projects via 3 like USB standard USB 2.0 fucking hard drives, and it took forever to download this shit. And now I just imported an 4K resolution fucking texture, and it's in the program already. This is crazy, dude. This is fucking crazy. This is crazy town. Oh my god. This is exciting as fuck for me, guys. Holy shit. I just don't... Oh, God, this is exciting. This is exciting.
And then just click on the one that ends with COL in the name, and then just hit open. And here it is. Okay. Yes. And it looks great up close. Only problem is, of course, look at that reflection. So bland, so fake. And as I mentioned before, fake is the enemy, and you need to squash it by just adding variance. So that's where our roughness map is going to come in. And while we could try to add it in here, this section on the right-hand side, it's actually not where you do most of your material work, because this is kind of like a simplified, dumbed-down version. It doesn't really... It gets a little bit complicated when you try and add too many things to it, because there's like too many menus and drop-downs and all that kind of stuff. So instead, if you go to your shading tab at the top of the screen there, this will change the layout of the screen to something completely different we haven't seen before. And lots of windows, actually too many. I never actually need this one on the right-hand side. So where you just mouse over where you've got the divider, and then just right-click and then say join areas. And then you want to join it to the left to close it. And then I'll do the same here, because I've never needed those on the left-hand side. So I've just got my view at the top here, and then this one here. And the reason, by the way, this looks different than what we had before is because this is the material preview, but you can change it back to what we had before by clicking that. So material preview, by the way, It's the same. It's a rendered mode, but it's using lights, a different light setup. Basically, just an HDRI, which is like a fake kind of light and reflection map, just so that you can quickly preview materials. And really, you could use either or. They both kind of show the material, but yeah, let's use this one. Okay, but the bit that we're looking for is here. So this section here is your node setup, and it's actually an exact duplicate of what we did over here, because this on the right hand side is the simplified version. If you're just doing like a quick change, you might want to use this, but over here, this is what's actually happening to it underneath the hood, right? So you can see as I change this on the right hand side, that is also changing there. So they are linked. So the way nodes work is basically a left to right function. So we start over here with our image texture. It goes into our shader, which is the material for this plane. And then it comes out into a material output. And that's what is fed into the final shader. So essentially we could do anything. Like for example, and this is one of the value of nodes, is between these two nodes, we could add another node. Like for example, I could hit Shift A to add. Again, same hotkey, works everywhere. And then I could add in like a hue saturation value node. And then I could change the hue of my marble to look blue, right? Or something else. So that's the power of nodes, and you could just keep going, adding in adjustments and everything you want. So nodes, very, very flexible. They do look daunting because they get all these like, you know, squid looking lines going everywhere, but it's very, very convenient, very customizable. Okay, but we want to add something to our roughness so that we don't have a flat single value roughness, which is what that is currently. We want to use that map that we just downloaded. So one, you could hit Shift A and then add an image text this way, but actually we could also just drag out from that input there and then just do a release, and it'll now say, what do you want to add in this input? And we could type in image texture color and then hit enter. Then here, go to that same place that we unzipped it, and then we're looking for the one with roughness in the name. So roughness in the name, and then hit open. Okay, so this
You're going
is
much quicker
better,
than I need,
right?
than I
Currently.
can keep up right now. Hold on.
Here is material preview, but you can change it back to what we had before by clicking that. So material preview, by the way, it's the same. It's a rendered mode, but it's using light. Add in like a hue saturation value node, and then I could change the hue of my marble to look blue, right? Or something else. Okay. So that's the power of nodes, and you could just keep going, adding in adjustments and everything you want. So nodes, very, very flexible. They do look daunting because they get all these like, you know, squid looking lines going everywhere, but it's very, very convenient, very customizable. Okay, but we want to add something to our roughness so that we don't have a flat single value roughness, which is what that is currently. We want to use that map that we just downloaded. So one, you could hit Shift A and then add an image text this way, but actually we could also just drag out from that input there and then just do a release, and it'll now say, what do you want to add in this input? And we could type in image texture color,
image texture,
and then hit
color.
enter. Then here, go to that same place that we unzipped it, and then we're looking for the one with roughness in the name. So roughness in the name, and then hit open. Okay, so this is better, right? You can kind of see we've got some detail there, but it doesn't look quite right. Something is not going right. It's because...
Hold on a sec. Origin. Where is... It's not downloads. It'd be under Steam apps. Downloading? No. No, where the fuck would it be? Where is this located? How would I find that if I Yeah, this is where, like, because it's installed on Steam, I'm gonna run into a bunch of issues. Like, I don't even know where this would be. 3D objects? No. Oh wait, there it is. Polygon, Blender, library. Okay, there it is. All right.
When you add an image texture,
And it was roughness?
and it'll now say, what do you want to add in this input? And we could type in image texture, color, and then hit enter. Then here, go to that same place that we unzipped it, and then we're looking for the one with roughness in the
Okay. Roughness. Open image.
name. So roughness in the name, and then hit open. Okay, so this is better, right? You can kind of see we've got some detail there, but it doesn't look quite right. Something is not going right.
Well, yeah,
it's
something's
because
off.
when you add an image texture, Blender doesn't really know what type of information it is yet, and by default, it's looking at the color information, even though there isn't really color there. So instead, we need to tell Blender this is a special map, and we're just looking at the values, right? So essentially, the color space here, we need to change it from sRGB, where it's a standard photo color, to instead non-color data, or just non-color. I guess they've changed it. But now you can see that looks correct, right? So look at all that. We got scratches, we got smudges. It's infinitely more realistic than what we had previously. So beyond that though, we could also add in little tiny bumps, okay? So bumps are in a place you would not expect. There's not a bump value here. It's actually under normal. So normal, you hear that word a lot in 3D. It just basically means the face, which direction is the face pointing, right? So if this is your face of the plane, you're pointing this way.
I'm going to have to reinstall Blender outside of Steam in order to continue. Because the way the install is looking, like within my subtextures, like none of this makes sense. I think it was also because I downloaded the Polygon like asset library. Like how far back can I go? I don't think I can go any further back from here. Yeah, as soon as I remove that, yeah. Damn, dude. We got really far though today. Cool. Nice. This is really cool. I'm really enjoying getting back into 3D, guys. Like this is exciting. And the nice thing about this is I can just reload this from like the start. I'm gonna create a new folder called Blender. Blender. What the fuck? Why is it doing this? Hello? Okay. New folder, Blender. Why the fuck does it keep doing this? Fucking WB Games, dude. What the fuck? Why is it under Cyberlink? Fucking... What? Dude. Okay. Cool. Save Blender file. Okay. Nice. Let's see if anybody else is doing 3D. We'll go raid them. Art. A lot of VTubers doing art. $3D, 3D. Let's see what we got. Damn, dude. The art channel is just like VTuber City. I don't see any 3D artists. I mean, I guess you are an artist if you're I mean, I'm not saying any VTubers aren't artists because everybody's drawing right now, but I really don't see any 3D people. Yeah, nobody's doing that at all. Okay. Well, that was cool. Let's see. I could play some League of Legends, but I feel like I don't know. I really wanted to raid somebody. Damn, dude. Did Poppy just get started? Yeah, I'm gonna bring you guys over to Poppy. So Poppy is a very talented VTuber. He's very loud, so just a heads up, if you're not into that, totally understand. But he's very entertaining. Thank you guys for sitting through here. I hope like you, if you were following along with me, that was cool, or working on your own thing, that's awesome. I'm gonna continue to learn Blender. So that's gonna be. I have a feeling that's gonna be like the main thing I'm gonna be streaming, just until I get like a good grasp of the program, and then we'll start making some stuff. Because I have some like art assets and stuff that I'd like to make, which would be pretty cool. Platty, hi, bye, you hunk. So yeah, be kind to yourselves, and I'll be live tomorrow. I'm learning this program still, so yeah, thanks for being here. Raid Poppy. This channel is intended for mature audiences. I love you. Goodbye.